They called me the village bum, the lazy husband who made my pregnant wife suffer. They called my brother a cripple, cursed to a life of solitude. We were the poorest family, a forgotten footnote in our own story. Then, a single sentence from a city doctor changed everything. It's not polio. His leg can be fixed. Hope had a price, 3,000 yuan we didn't have. But I had a secret, a rusty tricycle, a wok, and a recipe for spicy crayfish that was about to take the city by storm. But that was just the beginning of my gamble. I just put a 20,000 yuan down payment on a prime storefront, using money my wife borrowed from her disapproving parents. I have 40 days to earn the remaining 25,000, or we lose it all. Meanwhile, a beautiful girl from our past is hiding in the hospital corridors, her heart set on the brother everyone had written off. My family's future, my brother's chance at love, and my own shot at redemption all come down to the next 40 days. And I refuse to fail again. Chapter 64. Ethan and Iris were staying in their old room. After washing up, they climbed into bed. It was an old hardboard bed, and every movement was accompanied by a creak. Iris, Ethan said into the quiet, his voice filled with a familiar worry. Tomorrow, you and Mom should stay home. Don't go out, especially not when the sun is high. If you absolutely have to go somewhere, make sure Mom is with you, and don't forget your straw hat. Iris turned to him, amused by his fretting. Ethan, don't worry. I'm not a panda in a zoo. I'm not that delicate. She was nearly 3 months along now, and starting to look a little plump. With twins, she was naturally showing more than a woman carrying one child. In our family, you are as precious as a panda, he murmured, then blew a soft puff of air onto her neck. A tingling sensation shot through her. She tried to squirm away. You, she said, glaring at him playfully. You know I'm ticklish. You did that on purpose. She twisted a few more times, but found herself held fast in his embrace. Honey, be good. Don't move around so much, Ethan said, his voice suddenly thick and hoarse. Iris didn't realize that her innocent squirming had ignited something in him, making him feel like a pot of oil about to boil over. He held himself perfectly still, enduring the sudden rush of heat. Hearing the change in his voice, Iris looked up and saw his flushed face. She immediately understood and went completely still. It had been 3 months since they had been intimate. For a woman, perhaps it wasn't so difficult. But for a young, healthy man, it was an ordeal. Ethan, maybe, Iris whispered, her voice so soft it was almost lost. But Ethan heard it. What is it? He asked, his voice still rough. At 26, he wasn't an innocent boy. He'd heard things, snippets of conversations from colleagues at the factory workshop who liked to tell jokes to pass the time. Iris leaned in close and whispered her idea. Ethan cupped her delicate face in his hands and kissed her, her hair, her eyes, her nose, her earlobes, finally settling on her soft, red lips. Perhaps it was the trust she had in him, or the deepening of her own feelings, but she slowly began to respond to his gentle, yet slightly wild kiss. They finally pulled apart, breathless. Iris's face was flushed, her breathing a little ragged. Honey, I'm a little hot. I'm going to take a shower, Ethan said, swinging his legs off the bed. He didn't want his mother to see any evidence of their passion in the morning. Iris nodded shyly, pulling the blanket over her face. Honey, thank you. I'm sorry you have to go through this, Ethan said, his voice full of tenderness. He leaned down and kissed her forehead before heading to the well in the backyard. Iris lay in bed, waiting for him, all sleepiness gone. She heard the splashing of water from the backyard and knew he was rinsing himself with the cold well water. That silly fool, she thought. Why didn't he use the hot water from the pot on the kitchen stove? The pot closest to the chimney was always kept full of warm water for washing. Thinking about what had just happened, her face burned. It was the first time she had ever been so forward with him. She wouldn't have known about such things, but an older colleague from the department store had quietly told her about it, saying it was a way to keep a husband from looking at other women during pregnancy. Iris had never really worried about him cheating. Deep down, she trusted him. She had only done it because she felt a little sorry for him. And now, she had used the method her colleague had told about. Oh no, what if he thinks I'm a bad woman now? Where would he think I learned something like that? The thought sent a new wave of anxiety through her. Well, what's done is done, she thought, tossing and turning under the covers. Just as her mind was racing, Ethan returned, freshly showered. Iris, why are you still awake? He asked, hearing the creaking of the bed. I can't sleep, she said, peeking her head out from under the blanket. Ethan, are you all clean? The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. It was such an obvious question. He was already in the room. He blinked, then nodded. Yes, I'm all clean. Iris, you should get some sleep. It's late, he said, not noticing her strange mood. Ethan, do you think I'm a bad woman? She couldn't hold it in any longer. The question had to be asked, or she wouldn't sleep all night. Iris, why would you ask that? He replied, genuinely confused. Because of what we just did, she mumbled, wishing she could bite her tongue off. Suddenly, he understood. A deep, hearty laugh escaped him. Ethan, you're laughing. I'm not talking to you anymore, she said, turning her back to him in a huff. Wife, my silly wife, he said, gently pulling her back into his arms. Her fox-like eyes stared up at him. Honey, I actually really liked it. His low, husky voice rumbled near her ear. You're terrible, she exclaimed, her embarrassment turning into playful anger as she pummeled his chest with her small fists. Don't be mad, I'm just teasing you. It's late, let's sleep, okay? Otherwise, your husband won't be able to get up tomorrow morning, and Dad will come after me with a broom, he said, half joking, half serious. Okay, let's sleep. Knowing they had to be up early, she nodded obediently and snuggled into his embrace, closing her eyes. And so they fell asleep, wrapped in each other's arms, as the moon climbed high above the trees, its light spilling through the windowpane. Chapter 65. The next day, Ethan rose quietly and got dressed. He looked at Iris, sleeping soundly, a small smile playing on his lips. He leaned down and gently pecked her on the lips before heading to the kitchen to wash up. Mom, you're up so early too, Ethan said, glancing at his watch. It was 4:50 a.m., not even 5 yet. Have to get up early to cook the rice, then chop the pig feed, cook it, and mix the chicken feed, Diana Pan said, stuffing firewood into the stove as she looked at her son. He was up without anyone having to call him. That was rare. Ethan nodded. There was a lot to do, and later, when they brought the harvested grain back, it would need to be spread out to dry. Mom, where are Dad and my brother? Ethan asked as he started brushing his teeth. They're in the main hall, getting the baskets and sickles ready, Diana said. She used a pair of tongs to pull a few plump, large sweet potatoes out from the embers. She patted the ash off them and set them aside to cool. The familiar, smoky aroma of baked sweet potatoes instantly filled Ethan's nostrils. His eyes lit up. His mother had baked sweet potatoes. It was one of the most vivid memories of his childhood, an essential snack. Mom, you bake sweet potatoes. They smell so good. Take them with you to eat on the way. There's no time to cook a proper meal this early in the morning, Diana explained. A bowl of porridge wouldn't provide enough energy, so she had baked these for them. The sweet potatoes had been well preserved in the cellar and were still fresh. By now, some of their water content would have evaporated, making them even sweeter. During the busy harvest season, many farming families skipped a formal breakfast to get an early start, usually working until around 8 before coming back for their first meal. A rural morning meal was about filling the stomach and getting energy for work, not the light, nutritious breakfast of the city. Ethan, take this basket. There are sweet potatoes and some boiled eggs inside for you all to have on the way. And take that kettle of water from the table for when you get thirsty, Diana said, wrapping the sweet potatoes in an old cloth and placing them in the basket with the eggs. Got it, Mom. And Mom, let Iris sleep in a little longer. I know, I don't need you to tell me that. So you finally know how to care for your wife, do you? Where was this concern before? Diana teased with a smile. Mom, I was immature before. It won't happen again. Ethan could only say with an apologetic grin, knowing his past reputation was well earned. All right, get going. Your father and brother should be about ready. Ethan nodded, grabbed the basket, and headed to the main hall. The large doors were already open. The sky was just beginning to lighten, enough to see the path nearby, though the distance was still a gray haze. His father was organizing baskets for the grain, placing sickles and straw hats inside. His brother, Julian, was outside, oiling the threshing machine so it would run smoothly. Just then, Kyle emerged, ready to wash up. Kyle, you going to harvest rice in that? Ethan asked, seeing that Kyle was wearing a short-sleeved t-shirt and shorts. Getting a tan would be the least of his worries. The sharp rice stalks would scratch him up badly. It's so hot. Why wouldn't I wear shorts? Should I be wearing long sleeves? Kyle said with a laugh. Then he noticed that everyone else was, in fact, wearing long pants and long-sleeved shirts. You didn't bring any long-sleeved clothes, did you? Kyle shook his head. He'd only packed a few changes of summer clothes. You can wear mine. They might be a bit big, though, Ethan said, as he was slightly taller than Kyle. Okay, Kyle agreed immediately. He knew to trust Ethan's advice. I'll go get them. You go wash up. We're leaving soon. Ethan checked his watch. It was already 5:10. Hearing that, Kyle hurried to the kitchen. He was back in less than 2 minutes, and Ethan handed him the clothes. Kyle quickly changed, planning to wash them that night so they'd be dry for the next day. Dad, brother, Kyle, have some sweet potatoes and eggs. Mom made them this morning so we'd have energy to work, Ethan said, passing out the food from the basket. It was Kyle's first time eating sweet potatoes grown and baked at home over a wood fire. He couldn't stop saying how delicious they were. After he finished one, Ethan gave him another. The men ate their fill and then set off. Julian carried the dismantled threshing machine on a shoulder pole, while their father pulled a flatbed cart. On their way, they occasionally ran into familiar villagers, who all looked at Ethan with expressions of utter shock. Is that Ethan actually going to harvest rice? Doesn't his wife usually come back to help? Yeah, what's going on? The sun must have risen in the west. That kid is actually helping out at home. I bet he won't last half a day. Ethan was mortified but forced himself to greet them. Morning, Uncle Fu. Morning, Uncle Lou. Morning, Auntie Chunhua. His father shot him a glare. Ethan could only hang his head. It was all his fault. Fortunately, their family's fields were large and connected, with the smallest plot being about half an acre. The general rule was to harvest the fields closest to home first, then move to the ones farther away. However, if any rice had lodged, fallen over in the field, that had to be harvested immediately. Otherwise, the dampness from the ground would cause the grains to sprout, rendering them useless except as feed for the chickens. Their rice, thankfully, stood straight and tall, only the heavy heads of grain bowing down. When they arrived, Julian set down the threshing machine and began to assemble it. Their father, David, had already taken off his work shoes and waded into the paddy with his sickle. He squatted low, his back bent, and with practiced movements, he began to cut down the rice stalks, gathering them in his hand, straightening them, and laying them in neat, crisscrossing piles on the dike. He needed to clear a space to place the thresher. Each handful consisted of 7 or 8 stalks, or 4 or 5 if the stalks were particularly thick. Too many, and it would be hard to hold, and wouldn't thresh cleanly, leading to waste. David was a master farmer, and his speed was astonishing. Rows of rice fell before him, and in moments, 7 or 8 piles were stacked on the dike, leaving a clear patch in the field. "Kyle, wait a minute before you come down. My brother and I will move the thresher down," Ethan called out, seeing Kyle taking off his shoes, eager to join. Kyle watched David work with admiration. He could cut a whole handful in less than a minute. He was itching to try it himself. "Okay," Kyle shouted back, waiting by a small, clear irrigation ditch where he could see small fish darting about. Soon, the threshing machine was set up in the cleared space. "Kyle, you can come down now," Ethan called. Kyle immediately scrambled down, leaving his shoes on the dike. By now, Julian was already at the thresher, pedaling rhythmically. The process wasn't difficult. Ethan had done it before. You held the top of the rice stalks firmly in both hands, fed the heads into the machine without letting go, and started pedaling. The grains would rattle off and fall into the wooden basin below. You had to be careful not to let your hands get pulled in. After turning the stalks over and over a few times, they were mostly clean. "Kyle, watch how I do it first, then you can try. Don't go too fast at the beginning," Ethan said, worried he might cut himself. "Okay." Kyle watched intently. David heard his younger son's instructions and thought to himself that Ethan was hardly an expert himself, but he held his tongue, not wanting to dampen his enthusiasm. In fact, David was mistaken. Ethan was lazy, not incapable. "Kyle, hold the stalks with your left hand about a third of the way up from the ground. Hold the sickle with your right hand about an inch from the blade. That way you won't cut your hand," Ethan explained, demonstrating the grip. "And your feet, keep them spread apart a bit, not too close together, or you'll cut your foot instead of your hand." Ethan showed him the proper stance. "I get it, Ethan bro. Can I start now?" Kyle asked, looking anxiously at the large patch David had already cleared. "What's the hurry? I'm not done yet. You need to cut in one direction. It's faster and neater. Watch me, then you can start slowly on your own." With that, Ethan began to harvest, moving slowly at first so Kyle could see clearly. "I've got it, Ethan bro," Kyle said after watching a couple of times, and then he started himself. Ethan nodded and then began to work in earnest. Swish, swish, swish. A pile appeared, then another. The space around Ethan cleared rapidly. In no time, he had surpassed his father. "Dad, I'm passing you. You're getting old," Ethan shouted playfully. David's eyes widened in disbelief. The brat had actually overtaken him. If he remembered correctly, the kid had barely ever harvested rice before. This speed. "Dad, little brother really did pass you," Julian said with a laugh, taking a short break from threshing. "Oomph. Just you wait, boy. This old man has still got it. Let's make it a competition," David retorted, picking up his pace. "Uncle, Ethan bro, you guys are so fast," Kyle said, envious of their speed while he lagged far behind. "Kyle, take your time. It's your first time. Not getting hurt is a victory in itself," Ethan said. He remembered cutting his own finger the first time he tried, and he'd quit on the spot. This kid had far more grit than he'd had. Kyle thought to himself, "I have to work harder. I can't be a total embarrassment." The three of them fell into a silent, good-natured competition, and a huge swath of the field was cut down in no time. Ethan looked at the amount of cut rice piling up. It was more than his brother could handle alone. The stalks couldn't be left in the sun for too long, or they would soften and be harder to thresh. Thinking of this, he walked over to the thresher. "Brother, you take a break. Let me do it." He wanted his brother to rest. His leg couldn't stand for too long. In the past, he would never have thought of such things. "It's okay, I'm not tired," Julian said with a simple smile. "Julian, you get down from there. Let the brat do it," David shouted from across the field. He had seen what was happening. It was good for his older son to rest. This younger son was finally showing some sense. "See, brother? Dad said so." Ethan finished threshing the bundle in his hands, and then took the one from his brothers. Julian had no choice but to step down and sit on the dike for a rest, taking a few sips of water. "Kyle, take a break. Go drink some water," Ethan called out. "I'm not thirsty, Ethan bro," Kyle replied. He wanted to finish the section in front of him before resting. The kid really wasn't afraid of hard work. Around 6 in the morning, Iris also got up. As she walked into the kitchen to wash up, she heard her mother-in-law's voice from behind her. "Iris, why didn't you sleep in?" Diana had intended to let Iris sleep as long as she wanted, figuring she could handle the household chores herself. "I'm well rested, Mom," Iris said, scooping some hot water from the pot on the stove and taking it to the backyard to wash. Diana took 2 boiled eggs she had kept warm in the pot and placed them in a bowl. She then retrieved 2 of the baked sweet potatoes, which were still warm from the embers of the stove. When Iris returned, she found the food on the table. "Iris, come eat something to tide you over until breakfast. If you're still tired after, you can go back to sleep." "Mom, did you eat?" Iris asked, looking at the eggs and sweet potatoes. "I've eaten. This is just for you. Hurry up and eat while it's warm. I'm going to feed the chickens." In truth, she had eaten, but she hadn't boiled an egg for herself, saving an extra one for her daughter-in-law. A pregnant woman needed extra nutrition. Diana sighed. She decided she would slaughter a chicken that afternoon to make a nourishing soup for Iris. "Mom, I can't eat this much. Why don't you help me with one? Please," Iris said, then quickly took an egg and slipped it into her mother-in-law's apron pocket. She knew her mother-in-law well enough to guess she hadn't eaten an egg. "You silly girl, how can you eat so little? There are 2 babies in there that need food." Diana tried to give the egg back. Iris quickly dodged her. "Mom, I have the sweet potatoes too. They're my favorite. If I eat 2 eggs, I won't have room for the sweet potatoes, and then I might not even be able to eat breakfast later." Seeing that Iris wouldn't take it, Diana finally sat down and ate the egg with her. "Mom, let me help you chop the pig feed later," Iris said while eating a sweet potato. The family was raising 3 pigs. "No need. I've already chopped and cooked it. I'll feed the pigs as soon as I'm done with the chickens," Diana said, shaking her head. "Then let me feed the pigs," Iris insisted. She couldn't just sit around. She was the last one to wake up and already felt embarrassed. "No, I'll let them out after I feed the chickens. It won't take long." Diana was worried the pigs might frighten her daughter-in-law. Iris noticed a basket full of sweet potato vines on the floor, the pig's lunch. An idea formed in her mind. "All right, Mom, you go feed the chickens. I'll just sit here for a bit after I finish eating." Iris figured feeding the chickens and geese would take her mother-in-law at least 20 minutes. Seeing her daughter-in-law relent, Diana picked up the mixed chicken feed and went to the backyard. The moment she was gone, Iris grabbed a small stool, pulled over the basket of vines, and began feeding them into a large, stationary chopper. It was a tool her father-in-law had made himself, very efficient, and a common sight in farm households. Iris had helped with this task on previous visits. In less than 20 minutes, she had chopped the entire basket of vines. She quickly swept them back into the basket. Just as she finished, she heard Ethan's voice at the gate. Ethan was pulling from the front, and Kyle was pushing from behind, both of them drenched in sweat. "Iris, where's Mom? Dad said we need to get this grain spread out to dry right away so we can get back to the field," Ethan said, steadying the cart. "Mom's feeding the chickens. She should be done soon," Iris replied, estimating the time. "Why are you back so early?" The cart was loaded with 4 baskets filled to the brim with grain. Iris went and got 2 towels from the line under the eaves, handing them to Ethan and Kyle. "You too, wipe your sweat. Rest for a minute." After a short break, they felt much better. "Ethan, you and Kyle take the drying mats from under the eaves to the big lawn behind the house," Iris said, pointing to 3 or 4 rolled-up mats. Ethan understood immediately. He and Kyle grabbed the heavy mats and ran to the grassy area behind the house, which the family used exclusively for drying grain and other things. They unrolled the mats and laid them side by side. Iris had already followed with a clean broom to sweep them. "Iris, I'll sweep. You stand back so you don't breathe in the dust," Ethan said, taking the broom from her and sweeping them quickly. Then he and Kyle pushed the cart over. They tipped the grain onto the mats, and Iris handed them a rake to spread it into a thin, even layer. "Iris, we're heading back to help. Tell Mom about this. She'll know what to do," Ethan said with a smile, patting her head. "Ethan, you're back already, and you didn't even call me to help." "Goodness, Iris, you can't be doing this kind of heavy work," Diana called out, having finished with the pigs and found her way to them. "Mom, I didn't do anything. Ethan and Kyle did it all," Iris explained. "Kyle, thank you for your hard work," Diana said, feeling grateful for the young man's help. "Mom, don't worry about it. Just hurry up and cook. We're starving, and we'll be back for lunch soon," Ethan said as he and Kyle pushed the empty cart and headed back to the fields. On that first day, everyone worked with furious energy. The 4 of them managed to finish harvesting 2 full acres, but by the end of it, they were all as deflated as popped balloons. David and Julian, being accustomed to farm work, fared slightly better. Ethan and Kyle were in the worst shape, especially Kyle, a city boy who had never experienced this kind of hardship. "Ethan, Kyle, go wash up in the backyard. Dinner will be ready soon," Diana said, seeing their exhausted state. "Okay, Mom," Ethan replied, then nudged the near-comatose Kyle. Kyle managed to nod. "Okay, Annie." Ethan helped Kyle to his feet, and the 2 of them grabbed their clothes and went to shower. "You old man, you really pushed that boy too hard," Diana grumbled at her husband. Look how tired he is. It wasn't me. The kid insisted on competing with me. He's a tough one. Works as hard as any boy raised in the country, David said with a laugh. The whole day had been a series of high-spirited competitions, with no one willing to back down. David had also noticed his younger son frequently telling his older son to take breaks. David knew Ethan was doing it on purpose, and it made David happy. The boy had never once looked out for his brother. It had always been the other way around. Now, Ethan was even planning to take his brother to the city to get his leg treated. Whether it could be fixed or not, the thought was what counted. Well, you should have told him to slow down. What if you worked him too hard? Diana shot her husband a look. Mom, don't blame Dad. He told him to, but Kyle wouldn't listen. Julian interjected, coming to his father's defense. That settled the matter for Diana. Tonight, everyone eat well. I made double-cooked pork, scrambled eggs with peppers, and eggplant with minced pork. I also stewed a whole chicken. You all can have some of the meat, but the soup is for Iris. Diana, you killed a chicken? David asked, surprised. Of course. Iris is pregnant. We owe that girl so much. She needs to be well-nourished, Diana said. It was the truth. Their daughter-in-law was the kind you couldn't find even if you searched with a lantern. She was a city girl with none of the city airs, obedient, respectful, and honest. They had been blessed to have Iris marry into their family. You're right, Diana. We need to take good care of her. We won't eat the chicken meat either. Leave it all for our daughter-in-law, David said, tapping the ash from his pipe. Mom, we won't eat the chicken either. Give it to my sister-in-law. She's had a hard time these past couple of years, Julian added. All right, it's all for our daughter-in-law then. I'll listen to you all, Diana said, relieved. Just then, Iris, who had been walking toward the door, overheard the entire conversation. Her eyes welled up with tears. This family was so genuinely kind to Iris. Aside from Ethan's 2 years of foolishness, which were now behind them, Iris felt incredibly happy and blessed. That afternoon, Iris had seen her mother-in-law kill the chicken and had assumed it was for everyone. Iris never imagined. Mom, that chicken was at least 5 or 6 pounds. There's no way I can eat all that. It'll go bad. What a waste, Iris said, sniffling as she walked into the room. It's all right, Iris. They have other dishes. I even braised some beef and fried some peanuts for them to have with their drinks, Diana said, understanding Iris's good intentions. Iris was always thinking of others, which only made her more endearing. At that moment, Ethan and Kyle came out, freshly showered. Mom, Iris can't eat that much. Let's all share it, Ethan said, knowing Iris would feel guilty eating it alone. Diana looked at Kyle and had a thought. How about this, Iris? We'll give a bowl of chicken soup and a bowl of meat to Kyle, and the rest is for you. How does that sound? Kyle, hearing that the soup was meant to nourish his sister-in-law, immediately shook his head. Auntie, I don't drink chicken soup. I don't really like it. I'd rather have your braised beef. Kyle wasn't just being polite. Kyle genuinely didn't want to take food meant for Iris. Diana could see Kyle's sincerity and smiled. All right then, Kyle. You have some more beef later. Iris looked helplessly at Ethan. Ethan reached out and stroked Iris's head fondly. Wife, the chicken soup is all yours. Everyone burst into laughter, and the fatigue of the long day seemed to melt away. That night, the dinner was bountiful, and everyone ate until they were full and content. At night, the temperature dropped considerably. In this era, before severe environmental damage, the country air was still fresh and clean. Kyle was likely exhausted. Despite wearing long sleeves and pants, Kyle still had scratches from the rice stalks. Diana brought out some ointment for Ethan to apply, telling Kyle with a concerned voice not to go to the fields the next day. But Kyle just shook his head, insisting Kyle would go. As tired as Kyle was, Kyle found the work interesting. Kyle, you worked hard today. Get some rest, Ethan said, knowing Kyle was more tired than any of them. I'm going to take your sister-in-law for a walk around the village to help with digestion. Kyle nodded. Okay, you and sister-in-law go ahead. I won't join you. Kyle was bone-tired, the most tired Kyle had ever been in Kyle's life, and knew Kyle needed to sleep to recover for the next day's work. Kyle had never realized how much effort went into producing food. Just one day of harvesting had made Kyle's back and calves ache fiercely. Kyle thought of all the times Kyle had thrown away leftover food and felt a deep sense of shame. Kyle vowed to never waste food again. With that thought, Kyle fell asleep almost instantly. Ethan gently pulled a blanket over Kyle's stomach. Sleep well, Ethan murmured, thinking that having a younger brother like Kyle wasn't so bad after all. Ethan left the room and found his wife. After telling his parents and brother where they were going, Ethan and Iris stepped out the main gate. Ethan, aren't you tired? Iris asked. The harvesting was such hard work, yet Ethan still wanted to take Iris for a walk. To be honest, Iris had eaten a bit too much that evening. A large bowl of chicken, 2 bowls of soup, half a bowl of rice, and some beef. It felt like Iris's stomach was about to burst. Ever since becoming pregnant, Iris's appetite and need for sleep had doubled. I'm not tired. It's just a walk with you, not manual labor. Now, if we were doing the kind of exercise one does at night while sleeping, I definitely wouldn't have the energy for that, Ethan teased with a grin. Iris didn't catch Ethan's meaning. What kind of exercise do you do while sleeping, Ethan? Why would that take energy? Well, the exercise is sleeping, commonly known as bed exercise. Haha. Ethan burst out laughing and took off running. Ethan's wife was so wonderfully innocent. Ethan, you're terrible, Iris said, finally understanding, and started to chase Ethan. Wife, stop. Don't run. Wait for me. Ethan suddenly shouted, remembering Iris's condition. Iris froze, also remembering, and stood still, waiting for Ethan. Ethan quickly walked back and took Iris's hand, and they continued at a slow pace. Honey, I'm sorry. I was just joking, Ethan said, looking at Iris's pouting lips and resisting the urge to kiss them. You're getting worse and worse. Where did you learn that from? Are you flirting with the university girls at your stall every day? Iris said it casually, but then a thought struck Iris. Ethan was tall and handsome. It wasn't impossible for a university student to fall for Ethan. Honey, I wouldn't dare. I have you, and that's more than enough. Besides, I'm just a poor stall owner. Why would a university student be interested in me? The only one interested in me is my dear wife. Ethan knew pregnant women could be prone to suspicion and worry, and Ethan didn't want Iris getting the wrong idea. Ethan had, in fact, received notes from female students, which Ethan either burned in Ethan's stove or publicly handed to Kyle, sending the girls running off in a huff. But Ethan had never told Iris, not wanting to cause Iris any anxiety. Smooth talker, Iris said, but Ethan's words had reassured Iris. Honey, I'm only a smooth talker for you, Ethan said, leaning in and planting a quick kiss on Iris's cheek. Iris glanced around. Thankfully, no one was there. There were no streetlights in the village, but the moonlight was bright enough to see by. Looking up at the blanket of stars, an idea came to Ethan. Iris, want me to take you to see the stars? Okay. Iris nodded gently. Ethan led Iris up the small hill behind the house. It was only about 50 feet high, a grassy clearing just before the woods began. Ethan and Iris sat down, the stars twinkling directly overhead as if they could reach out and touch them. There are so many stars tonight, and they're so bright, Iris said, nestled in Ethan's arms. Ethan looked up at the sky, and then Ethan saw it. The legendary star Ethan had only heard stories about. Ethan felt a thrill of excitement. Iris, do you know what that brightest star is? Ethan asked, pointing, Ethan's voice filled with wonder. Iris shook her head. I don't know. Around here, we call that the Seven Lives Star, Ethan said. It was a rare sight. The old-timers said you might live a whole life and never see it. What's a Seven Lives Star? Iris asked, noticing Ethan's excitement. I'm not entirely sure, but the older generation says that if a couple in love sees it together, they'll be lovers for 7 lifetimes. And if a married couple sees it. Ethan had always dismissed it as folklore. But now, Ethan suddenly found himself hoping it was true. Ethan, you mean because we saw it, we'll be married for 7 lifetimes? Iris found it a bit far-fetched. Could a single star really determine that? Honey, you don't wish it were true? Ethan asked, sensing Iris's skepticism. Iris thought about her life now. If it could always be like this, it would be wonderful. Iris nodded. Ethan, of course I hope it's true. Being with you is a good thing. Iris shyly buried her face in Ethan's chest. Ethan held Iris tight and said silently to himself, Iris, I hope it's true. The next afternoon, the group didn't get home from the fields until 1 o'clock. David Yu was the first one through the door, his booming voice echoing through the house. Diana, is the food ready? I'm starving. Diana called back with a laugh. You old goat. Did you just get out of prison? Shouting for food the second you walk in. Iris took David's straw hat from him with a smile. Dad, Mom has everything ready. Good. That's good. He chuckled, his eyes landing on the table laden with dishes. There was stir-fried pork with peppers, scrambled eggs with chives, a cold cucumber salad, stir-fried zucchini, and a large bowl of duck soup. With the hot weather, her mother-in-law had killed and stewed a duck that morning to help everyone cool down. Seeing all the food, David's mouth began to water. He swallowed hard, glanced at his wife, and then quickly snatched a piece of pork, popping it into his mouth. The old woman's cooking is getting better and better, he thought to himself. He didn't realize it was because they had a guess that Diana was being more generous with the cooking oil, which made everything taste better. One piece wasn't enough. As he reached for a second, his hand was slapped away. You old devil. Diana scolded. Did you even wash your hands? You're a grown man. Have some shame. The 3 boys aren't even back yet, and you're already sneaking food. Hee. Diana, I only had 1 piece. They're just outside drying the grain. They'll be here in a minute. I was just testing it for salt for them, David said, coming up with a convenient excuse. Iris watched the exchange, thoroughly amused. The food had been ready for a while. She had helped her mother-in-law cook it. Just then, Ethan and the others came in. Diana fell silent, but not before shooting her husband one last glare. She turned to Kyle and the others with a warm smile. Kyle, you too, go wash your faces in the backyard. It's time to eat. After lunch, it was nearly 2 o'clock. They could rest until 3:30. You men go and get some rest. Iris, you take a nap too, Diana instructed. Ethan offered to help with the dishes, but was shooed away by his mother. In the end, all the men went to lie down. After such grueling work, even just lying down for a while was a relief. Once they were gone, Diana began to clear the table, and Iris came to help. Iris, go lie down. I can handle these few dishes, Diana insisted. Unable to win the argument, Iris secretly grabbed a straw hat from a hook under the eaves and slipped out. She went to the lawn behind the house to turn the grain. Using a large, wooden rake-like board, she pushed the grain in rows, flipping it over so it would dry evenly. In this heat, 3 full days of sun would be enough to dry it completely. Once the dishes were done, Diana started cooking the chopped sweet potato vines for the pigs. She assumed Iris had gone for a nap and didn't think much of it. It was only after she'd fed the pigs and went to check on the drying grain that she saw her daughter-in-law sitting under the large camphor tree, fanning herself with a straw hat. Iris, you child. Why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing out here? Get back inside right now. Diana was both worried and exasperated. Mom, it's okay. There's a nice breeze here. It's not hot. Iris said with a sweet smile. Not hot. You've been out here turning the grain again, haven't you? Why won't you listen? Diana shook her head with a helpless smile. Mom, I sleep so much all day. I can't sleep anymore. Well, then sleep less. Just half an hour at noon, then get up, Diana suggested. Mom, I think the sun is gone, Iris said, looking up at the sky. Diana looked up too and saw a few dark clouds gathering. She slapped her thigh. Oh no, it's going to pour. Iris, I'll start bringing in the grain. You go wake your father and the others to help, Diana said, beginning to fold up one of the drying mats. Iris hurried back to the house to get them. Iris, walk slowly. Don't fall, her mother-in-law called after her. I will, Mom. A loud clap of thunder boomed, startling everyone awake. Just as Iris shouted, Dad, brother, Ethan, it's raining. The 3 men were already dressed and rushing out the door towards the back lawn. Kyle was a beat behind them, but running just as fast. They managed to get all the grain gathered and the mats rolled up and put away just as they all dashed back inside. A moment later, the sky opened up and sheets of rain fell so hard they couldn't see a thing outside. Thank goodness we got it in time. Otherwise, the grain would be soaked, and today's sunning would have been for nothing, Diana said, patting the dust from her clothes. What strange weather. The rain just comes out of nowhere. If you were caught out in that, you wouldn't even be able to open your eyes, David said, peering out at the downpour. Ethan bro, with a storm this big, are we still going to harvest rice this afternoon? Kyle asked. Iris couldn't help but chuckle at his question. Kyle looked around at the expressions on their faces, which all seemed to say, Are you serious? And realized he must have asked something foolish. Kyle, in a rain like this, do you want us to harvest the rice just so it can sprout? Ethan laughed. Hee. I didn't know, Ethan bro. I was just asking, Kyle said, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. Well, what do we do now? Kyle asked again. Watch TV, sleep, whatever you want. What else can you do in a rain like this? Ethan looked at his watch. It was 3:30. The rain didn't look like it would let up anytime soon. Oh, I need to go check if my chickens came back, Diana exclaimed and hurried towards the backyard. Even in a downpour, they would usually find their way back to the coop to take shelter. 10 minutes later, she returned. Good. Not a single one is missing, she announced. David couldn't resist a comment. Those chickens are your life. You're wrong, old man, Diana retorted. How am I wrong? You wouldn't think about those chickens only if you were on your deathbed. Of course you're wrong. You should have said they're more important than my life, Diana said, looking at him with a triumphant expression. Dad, you lose again, Ethan said with a grin. Seeing his parents bickering playfully like this felt so real, so comforting. He thought back to his previous life. Iris was gone, his brother was gone, and his parents were just empty shells, their health failing despite all the expensive medicine. The memory was like a knife in his heart. Now this was so much better. The whole family, together. You brat. Give you an inch and you take a mile, David said, slipping off his slipper and pretending he was about to hit Ethan, who, as a mischievous child, had received his fair share of spankings. Dad, I was wrong. Mom, save me. Dad's going to hit me again, Ethan yelled, dodging into the living room. Just as he predicted, his mother blocked the doorway. All right now, Ethan was just telling the truth, and you're ready to beat him. We have a guest, you should give him some face, Diana said. David looked at Kyle, who was watching them with wide eyes, and chuckled sheepishly. Kyle, you're a good kid. This one of mine just needs a good thrashing every now and then. Uncle, Auntie, actually, Ethan bro is really great. He takes good care of me. I've learned a lot from him, Kyle said, feeling that Ethan's parents might still have some misconceptions about him. Yes, Kyle. They're just playing around. Don't take it seriously, Diana said, realizing that Kyle had picked up on the underlying tension. Right, your auntie's right. We just like to roughhouse a bit, David quickly agreed. Ethan walked over. Kyle, why don't you go get some more sleep? The kid was great, but sometimes he talked a bit too much. Ethan bro, I'm not tired. I don't want to sleep, Kyle said, taking him literally. We're not working this afternoon. Everyone relax and rest, David announced, looking at the sky. The rice in the fields would be soaked anyway. Ethan bro, I really don't want to sleep, Kyle insisted as Ethan pulled him into the living room. Who told you to go to sleep? In a little while, I'm going to take you to do something fun, something exciting and interesting, Ethan said mysteriously, patting Kyle on the shoulder. What is it? What's the fun, exciting thing? Tell me, Ethan bro. Kyle's eyes instantly lit up. Seeing the excitement in Kyle's eyes, Ethan thought to himself that young people really can't stand being cooped up. He glanced outside. The rain looked like it was about to stop. The downpour would have washed a lot of fish out of the upstream reservoir, wild fish that no one farmed. The ditches downstream would be full of them. With the afternoon's work canceled, he figured they could go catch some fish and add a nice dish to dinner. Maybe he could even catch a few large crucian carp for his wife. He'd heard carp soup was good for pregnant women and children. Come on, Ethan bro, tell me. Kyle pressed, seeing Ethan staring outside. Patience, Kyle. The rain hasn't stopped yet, Ethan said, gesturing to the window. Oh, well, can you at least tell me what the fun thing is? Kyle whined, feeling an itch of curiosity he couldn't scratch. The fun thing is catching fish. We're going to catch our dinner tonight, Ethan said with a smile. Catching fish? How? That sounds like fun. Kyle was immediately energized. He'd never caught a fish before, only seen it on TV. You'll see how in a bit, Ethan replied, knowing it would be hard to explain. Kyle nodded, his eyes fixed on the window, muttering, Stop raining, stop raining. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. Don't you two be in such a hurry. The rain will stop in about 10 minutes, Julian said, walking over. Hee, brother, you heard us. Since we have the afternoon off, I was thinking. Julian bro, are you coming? You should come catch fish with us, Kyle suggested, thinking the more, the merrier. Come on, brother. It'll be fun, Ethan urged when he saw his brother hesitate. Because of his leg, his brother didn't like to go out or socialize much. He mostly just worked. All right, when the rain stops, we'll go. We'll add a dish to Mom's dinner tonight, Julian agreed. Brother, you talk to Kyle for a minute. I'm going to go tell my wife, Ethan said. Don't forget to tell Mom and Dad too, Julian called after him. Ethan found his parents and wife in the small sitting room, chatting. Dad, Mom, Iris, when the rain stops, my brother, Kyle, and I are going to go catch some fish for dinner, he announced. Catching fish? After such a heavy rain, the water will be high everywhere. Is that safe? Diana asked, worried. Diana, high water is the best time to catch fish. The fish from upstream all get washed down. We might even catch a big one, David said excitedly. Ethan, is it safe? Iris asked, her heart filled with a vague sense of unease. It's fine, Iris. We'll go after the rain stops, he reassured her. Don't worry, daughter-in-law. Dad will go with them. I'll keep an eye on them for you, David offered, though his real motive was to go himself. You old coot, you're not a young man anymore. Why are you trying to join in on the fun? Diana said, seeing right through him. Diana, I've got nothing to do at home anyway. I can't exactly join in on your conversation, he grumbled. Mom, just let Dad go. We'll all be there, it'll be fine, Ethan said, knowing his mother was just worried about his father. The roads were muddy, and a fall at his age could be serious. David secretly gave Ethan a thumbs up behind Diana's back. Ethan couldn't help but smile. Mom, please let Dad go. Ethan and my brother will be there, and Kyle too. They're all young men. Iris chimed in, seeing the pleading look from her father-in-law. All right, fine. You old man. If you're going, you stick to the grassy parts of the path, Diana relented. I will, Diana, I promise. David beamed. Dad, the rain has stopped. Let's get our tools and go, Ethan said, seeing the sun was already breaking through the clouds. Let's go, David boomed. Brother, Kyle, come on. Get the gear, we're going fishing. Ethan yelled down the hall. We're coming, Ethan bro. Kyle's loud voice echoed back. The sun was out now, bright and warm. It was strange how quickly the weather had changed. The group grabbed wicker baskets, buckets, and scoop nets, and headed out, a boisterous, smiling procession on their way to the ditches. Dad, why are you carrying a hoe? Ethan asked, noticing his father had grabbed one on their way out. What do you know, boy? You'll see. This will be very useful, David said with a knowing look. Uncle, can you catch fish with a hoe? Kyle asked, his curiosity piqued. Dad, we're going fishing, not farming. What are you doing with a hoe? Julian couldn't help but ask. David just grunted. This hoe is a wonderful thing. In a little while, you won't be looking at me like that. The boys were all looking at him like he was crazy, and he knew it. After a 20-minute walk, they stopped at a long ditch that ran alongside a road on one side and fields on the other. The ditch was wide and deep upstream, flowing down into a large pit before narrowing significantly. Both banks were overgrown with thick water weeds, a perfect hiding place for fish. With all that rain today, there must be some big ones that got washed out, David said, setting down his hoe. Dad, the water is a bit deep upstream. It might be hard to catch anything there, Julian observed. The water looked to be waist deep. Brother, we can fish downstream. The water's shallower there, Ethan suggested, seeing that the downstream section was only about knee-deep. All right, Julian agreed. You silly boys. If there are big fish, they'll be in this deep pit right here, David said, pointing. Dad, there's too much water in that pit. and it's hard to block the flow from upstream, Ethan pointed out. Haha, your old man has a plan. You just wait and see. For now, go downstream and catch some small ones, David said with a wave of his hand, then started rolling up his pant legs. Dad, be careful. Don't fall in, Ethan called out. You brat, do you ever have anything nice to say? David retorted with a laugh, then took his hoe and started digging into the bank above the ditch. Dad, what are you digging for? Julian asked, worried his father might slip on the muddy bank. Don't worry about me. Go help your brother catch fish, David said impatiently. Julian relented and headed downstream. Brother, you take the scoop net and work your way upstream along the bank. Kyle and I can handle it here, Ethan said, noticing the narrow ditch only had room for one person. The net had a long, extendable handle, so Julian could walk along the bank and scoop without getting in the water. Okay, Julian said, taking the net. Brother, let's see who catches more, Ethan called out with a grin. All right, Julian called back, though he didn't really care who caught more, as long as his brother was happy. Ethan jumped down into the ditch with a large, flat wicker basket. He held it steady in the water. Kyle, he shouted. You start upstream and walk down this way. Use your feet to stir up the weeds on both sides and drive the fish towards me. How do I do that, Ethan bro? How do I drive the fish? Kyle asked, looking bewildered. Ethan sighed. The kid had never done this before. Kyle, come down here where I am, he said. When Kyle reached him, he explained, get in and hold this basket. Don't lift it until I get right in front of you. I got it, Ethan bro. I promise I won't lift it until you're here, Kyle said seriously. Ethan climbed out and walked upstream, then jumped back into the ditch. He started stomping his feet, kicking up the weeds and churning the water until it was murky. Watch me, Kyle. This is how you drive the fish. Pay attention, you'll do it next time, he said as he worked his way forward. A few minutes later, he was standing in front of Kyle. Okay, Kyle, lift the basket with both hands. Don't tilt it, and be quick about it. Kyle hoisted the basket out of the water. As the water drained out, a flash of silver and other colors appeared inside. Whoa, Ethan bro, there really are fish. So many of them, Kyle exclaimed, his face breaking into a huge grin as he watched the small fish flip and flop in the basket. Ethan glanced inside. It was a decent haul, a dozen or so tiny crucian carp, some wild tilapia, a few colorful little sunfish, some shrimp, and even 2 small loaches. What are you so excited about? This isn't that many, Ethan said, picking the fish out and putting them in the bucket of clean water they'd brought. Ethan bro, these colorful ones are so pretty, but they're so small, Kyle said, pointing at the sunfish. There are a lot of those, but they never get very big. Ethan bro, let me try this time, Kyle said, eager for his turn. All right, you try? Let's see how your luck is. Ethan took the basket and walked further downstream. Why are you going down there? Kyle asked, confused again. Because the fish we didn't catch have all been driven downstream, Ethan explained. Oh right, Kyle said, feeling like he'd learned another valuable lesson. Okay, right here. You go up and drive them down, Ethan said, setting the basket in the water. Kyle jumped in and started mimicking Ethan's stomping, and he was a quick learner. Just as Kyle was about to approach Ethan, Ethan suddenly lifted the basket and threw it onto the bank. What's wrong, Ethan bro? Kyle asked, confused. He hadn't even finished driving the fish. Kyle, what's that? Ethan pointed to a large, dark creature flopping on the grass where he'd thrown the basket. Just as Kyle had gotten within a few feet of him, Ethan had felt a powerful surge in the water. He knew something big had just swum into the basket and quickly heaved it onto the bank, afraid a big fish would leap out and escape. Ethan bro, what kind of fish is that? It's huge, Kyle said, pointing at the creature. He saw it had a flat mouth, tiny eyes, whiskers, and a smooth, slimy-looking body. Yeah, it's a big one. Must be 4 or 5 pounds, Ethan said. It's a catfish. They have 8 whiskers. He was already planning to braise most of it and make a soup for his wife with the rest. He couldn't just think about his wife. He had to be a good son to his parents too. This fish was rich in protein, perfect for a pregnant woman. This way, his wife could have both the braised fish and the soup. Hearing what Ethan said, Kyle actually went and counted the whiskers. Hey, you're right, there really are 8. Of course I'm right. Now hurry and get it in the bucket before it dies. Oh okay, actually wait. You get the other fish. I'll handle the catfish, Ethan said, remembering that Kyle had never handled one before and could get stabbed by its sharp pectoral fins. Getting stabbed by a catfish fin was incredibly painful. There was a trick to grabbing them safely. Ethan bro, this is a pretty good haul, Kyle said, his hands busy scooping the smaller fish into the bucket. Not bad, Ethan agreed, looking at the 7 or 8 carp and other assorted small fish. Look, Ethan bro, there are crawfish too. Kyle was surprised to see them in the ditch. What's so strange about that? Ethan saw there were a good number of them, 7 or 8 of varying sizes. Just then, his brother Julian walked over. Julian bro, how many did you catch? Kyle asked eagerly. This is all of it, Julian said, dumping the contents of his net onto the ground. Wow, 2 big crucian carp was the first thing Ethan noticed. They looked to be close to a pound each. It was rare for wild carp to grow that large. He thought about the calcium-rich carp soup and decided to keep them alive in a bucket for his wife to have after she finished the catfish soup. Whoa, Julian bro, you got a lot of crawfish. Kyle's attention, as usual, was on the crawfish. I don't know why I caught so many of these things. They're not even good to eat. We should probably just throw them back, Julian said. No one in the village ate them. Brother, why would we throw them back? These are a delicacy. I'll cook tonight and show you and Mom and Dad. I guarantee you'll love them, Ethan said, tossing all the crawfish into the bucket. There had to be 3 or 4 pounds worth. They could make a huge platter. They could buy some beers from the village chief's store tonight. Crawfish and beer, a perfect match. Ethan, you even caught a big catfish. Nice one. Better than me, Julian said, noticing the large fish in the other bucket. Dad is over there digging mud to build a dam. We should go help him, Julian said. A dam? What for? Ethan wondered what his father was up to. The 3 of them gathered their things and headed upstream. When they got there, they saw their father digging up large clumps of grassy sod and using them to block the channel above the deep pool. Ethan finally understood the purpose of the hoe. Dad, let me dig. You take a rest, Ethan said, wading into the channel. All right, your turn, David said, handing the hoe to his son. He was getting tired. He really wasn't as young as he used to be. Ethan quickly dug up several large pieces of sod, and Julian and Kyle found some big rocks to weigh them down, creating a sturdy dam that soon rose above the water level. Then, they built a smaller dam at the outlet of the large pool. All right, now you 2 boys take the buckets and start bailing the water out of this hole, David ordered. He was sure there were big fish trapped inside. Julian went first, then Ethan took a turn. No wonder his dad had insisted on bringing 2 buckets. As always, the old man's experience paid off. Ethan bro, come on up and let me try, Kyle said, eager to join in. Okay, your turn, Ethan said, handing him the bucket. In less than half an hour, the 3 of them had nearly emptied the pool. There's a big splash. Must be a big one. Get in there and grab it. Stop bailing, David shouted. Ethan was the first to jump in, using his basket to scoop through the remaining water. Julian shortened the handle of his net and jumped in too. Kyle, having no tools, simply waded in and started feeling around with his hands. David sat on a dry rock on the bank, watching them. Youth was a wonderful thing. Wow, I caught a big crucian carp, Kyle yelled joyfully, holding up his prize. Nice one, Kyle. Good job, David praised him with a laugh. Dad, a huge grass carp, Ethan yelled excitedly, scrambling onto the bank to dump the fish into the other bucket. He also moved the catfish over, worried the crawfish might pinch it. Ha ha, I told you there'd be some big ones in here. David was thrilled. Dad, I got a big head carp. It's huge, Julian shouted in surprise. Everyone turned to look. Julian was supporting the net with his hand, probably afraid it would break. That thing has to be 7 or 8 pounds, Kyle exclaimed, his eyes wide with amazement. One fish was bigger than the next. In the end, they caught several more palm-sized carp, 2 more 3 to 4 pound grass carp, and 2 2 to 3 pound common carp. As they were getting out, Kyle managed to catch a 2 to 3 pound bass, which made him so happy he was practically bouncing. On the way home, his father and brother carried 1 bucket of fish, while he and Kyle carried the other. The 4 of them walked back, laughing and joking. It was truly a bountiful return. On the way, they ran into villagers who marveled at the fish in their buckets, praising them effusively. David beamed, unable to contain his pride. Ethan was happy just seeing his father so happy. As they neared the house, David started shouting at the top of his lungs. Diana, Diana, come out quick. We caught some huge ones. Dad, are you trying to announce this to the whole village? Ethan teased, seeing his father's triumphant expression. You brat, can't your old man be happy? David said, playfully rapping Ethan on the head. Old man, what are you yelling about? Diana called, coming out of the house. She was wearing an apron and had probably just started preparing dinner. It was almost 6 o'clock. Iris followed her out. Both women gasped when they saw the buckets of fish. How did you catch so many? And there are some really big ones, Diana exclaimed. Dad, you all are amazing. Iris praised them sincerely. Tonight, I'll cook fish for you. This catfish will make a good soup for my daughter-in-law, Diana said. Mom, that catfish is at least 4 or 5 pounds. I can't possibly eat all that soup. Why don't you braise it instead? I like it braised, Iris said half-truthfully. She knew if it was braised, everyone could eat it, but if it was made into soup, they would all insist she have it. Besides, she was getting a little tired of light-flavored soups. Mom, Iris can't eat that much. Why don't you make a small portion of soup and braise the rest? Ethan suggested. All right then, we'll do as you say, Diana nodded. Mom, have you started cooking dinner yet? Ethan asked. The rice is washed and the water is boiling. Mom, I'll cook tonight. You and Iris can relax and chat, he announced. He also had an idea for the crawfish. Julian, go to the store and buy a few bottles of beer. We have plenty of food tonight, so we men should have a drink, David instructed. Just as Julian was about to go, David added, Wait, ask your Uncle Ken to come over for dinner. And take him some fish. Dad, I'll go buy the beer and invite Uncle Ken over, Ethan offered. He wanted to improve his standing with the village chief, who had often lectured him in the past. David looked at his younger son. In the past, Ethan would have refused to run any errand that took him to the chief's house. Today he was volunteering. If you want to go, then go, David said. Ethan bro, can you make spicy crawfish tonight? Kyle asked, already craving the taste. You bet. I'll make it when I get back, Ethan nodded. Then I'll wash and prepare the crawfish while you're gone, Kyle said happily, turning to ask Diana for a brush. Mom, don't worry about making more meat. We have so much fish, we won't be able to finish it all. Kyle just likes that stuff, Ethan said to his mother, who was worried Kyle wasn't getting enough to eat. Ethan filled a bucket with 2 carp, a large grass carp, and some of the smaller assorted fish. I'm off to buy the beer, he said, and headed towards the village chief's house. The chief, King Yu, was sitting under the large camphor tree in front of his store, enjoying the cool evening air. Chief Ken, my dad and I caught some fish this afternoon. I brought some over for you, Ethan called out with a smile. Ethan, you've brought so many. Take them back for your family to eat, Ken said, knowing their family's situation. You have to take them, uncle. My dad will kill me if I bring them back. Don't worry, we caught a lot. We have plenty at home, Ethan insisted. Ken relented and called inside. May, come out and take these fish. May, the chief's daughter, came out. She was 20 years old. She paused when she saw Ethan, then quietly greeted him. Hi, Ethan bro. Hi, May. Ethan replied politely. Why didn't Julian bro come? May asked as she took the bucket. May, her father said sharply. She quickly took the fish inside. Ethan felt something was a little off, but couldn't put his finger on it. Uncle Ken, I'll take a case of beer. And my dad wants you to come over for dinner tonight. All right, I'll be there tonight, Ken said, going inside to get the beer. He seemed to have something on his mind, glancing worriedly towards the back of the house. Well, I'll head back then, uncle. My dad's waiting for you to have a drink with him, Ethan said. All right, you run along, boy, Ken said, shaking off his mood with a smile. As Ethan walked away, he glanced back and saw the village chief sitting alone, sighing. He wondered what was going on. As Ethan approached his house, the aroma of steamed rice filled the air. He walked in and set down the beer. Ethan bro, I've already washed the crawfish and chopped the other ingredients, Kyle said, taking the beer and placing it on the floor. Good job, Kyle. Thanks. I'll take it from here. You go rest up and wait for the feast, Ethan said, clapping him on the shoulder. Did you see the chief, Ethan? David asked, coming over. Yes, Dad. Uncle Ken said he'll be over soon to have a drink with you. Ethan replied, glancing at his brother, who was sitting and shelling edamame without looking up. Julian remained as still as a statue. Maybe I was wrong, Ethan thought. Ha ha, that old fellow wants another drinking contest with me, David laughed. I also saw May. She's grown into a fine young woman, Ethan added casually, still watching his brother. May is a good girl, David said. Quiet and pretty. I wonder which lucky young man will get her. He glanced at his own quiet, stoic son and sighed inwardly. If only Julian's leg wasn't a problem. Whoever he is, he'll be a lucky man, Ethan said with a smile, then started preparing the fish. He took a large grass carp, expertly filleted it, and sliced the meat into thin pieces. Are you making fish fillets in hot chili oil? Iris asked, coming over. I'm making fish with sour cabbage, Ethan replied as he marinated the fish. Mom, do we have any sour cabbage? Yes, Diana called back. She had 2 jars she'd made last winter. She brought one out, and soon the kitchen was filled with the pungent, delicious smell of Ethan's cooking. About half an hour later, a spicy, fragrant aroma, the likes of which they had never smelled before, wafted from the kitchen. Kyle and Iris knew it was the crawfish. What in the world are you cooking, boy? You're going to choke me with that smell, David grumbled, walking into the kitchen. He saw the wok full of bright red crawfish. So this is what he's making with that worthless stuff, he thought. Dad, this is crawfish. I guarantee you won't be able to stop eating it, Ethan said. It's true, uncle. This stuff is delicious. I love it. Kyle chimed in from his post at the stove, feeding the fire. Dad, why don't you go see if Uncle Ken has arrived yet? Ethan said, then popped open a bottle of beer and poured it into the wok. A moment later, he felt a kick on his backside that nearly made him drop the spatula. He quickly put the lid on the wok. Dad, what did you kick me for? Ethan asked, bewildered. You wasteful brat. Does that beer grow on trees? You poured a whole bottle in there. David was heartbroken. A whole bottle of beer. Dad, there are plenty more bottles. Besides, a little beer makes the crawfish taste amazing and gets rid of any fishy smell, Ethan said, half laughing, half exasperated. His father had nearly kicked him into the wok over a single bottle of beer. Just then, the village chief, King Yu, walked in. David, what are you cooking? It smells fantastic. He arrived just as Ethan lifted the lid to serve the crawfish. That thing. They call it crawfish, David grumbled, pointing at the wok. Uncle Ken, have a seat. The food will be ready in a minute, Ethan said cheerfully, scooping the mountain of red crawfish into a large basin. Julian was also drawn in by the aroma. The heaping platter of bright red crawfish looked surprisingly appetizing, making his mouth water. That's right, brother. It's really good. You have to try some later, Ethan said. The crawfish was the last dish. The table was now groaning under the weight of the food, more lavish than a New Year's feast. The large family table was laden with dishes: steamed bass, sour cabbage fish, braised catfish, a large basin of bright red spicy crawfish in the center, a bowl of catfish soup, a dish of water spinach, and a cold cucumber salad. Come on, let's eat. Ken, you sit at the head of the table, David said, guiding the village chief to the seat of honor. After some polite back and forth, Ken finally sat down, and the men poured themselves bowls of beer. The women, Diana and Iris, ate a bowl of rice and soup and then excused themselves, leaving the men to their drinks and conversation. So this is that shrimp thing from the ditches? Ken asked, picking up a crawfish. He watched Kyle and Julian expertly peel and eat one after another. That's right, Uncle Ken. Give it a try, Ethan said, peeling one for his wife before she left the table. He noticed his father kept eyeing the rapidly diminishing platter of crawfish but hadn't touched it. Dad, why aren't you eating any? The chief cut his father off before he could answer. David, my God, this stuff is incredible. So spicy it's addicting, Ken exclaimed, having copied the other's technique. He quickly grabbed several more and put them on his plate. Is it really that good, Ken? David asked, skeptical. Why don't you try it yourself and find out? Ken said with a grin, popping a freshly peeled crawfish into his mouth. David finally gave in and picked one up. After a moment's hesitation, he peeled it and, with the air of a man facing his doom, tossed it into his mouth. His expression changed instantly. He immediately grabbed a dozen more and piled them on his plate. So, Dad, what do you think of the crawfish? Ethan asked deliberately. You little rascal. Why didn't you tell your old man this stuff was so delicious? Make another big platter for me tomorrow. David grumbled between bites. Yes, Ethan, make more. I'll come over again tomorrow, the chief added. Uncle Ken, if it's not raining tomorrow, we have to harvest the rice. I'm afraid there won't be time to catch them, Ethan explained. That's easy. I'll catch some for you tomorrow. The pond behind my house is full of them, Ken offered. The dinner continued with lively conversation and toasts. Ethan made a point to toast the village chief, and then gestured for Julian to do the same. Julian stood and respectfully toasted Ken. You're a good boy too, Julian. You've worked hard for this family all these years, Ken said with a sigh. He was a fine young man, tall, hardworking, honest, and devoted to his parents. May would be happy with him. But that leg. Uncle Ken, your daughter May must be 20 by now, right? Has she found a husband yet? Ethan asked, seizing the opportunity. You have a good memory, boy. She'll be 21 soon. No, not yet. Hasn't found the right one, Ken said truthfully. David quickly changed the subject, kicking Ethan under the table. But Ethan ignored him and pressed on. Besides helping with the harvest, the other reason I came back was to take my brother to the big hospital in the city to get his leg treated. David, is that true? You're going to get Julian's leg treated? Ken asked, his glass halfway to his lips. This was wonderful news. If Julian's leg was fixed, his wife would have no reason to object to a match. It's true, Ken, David confirmed, relieved that his son hadn't been trying to propose a marriage on the spot. Julian stared at Ethan in shock. This was the first he was hearing of it. Did the whole family know but him? Dad, Ethan, I'm not going, Julian said, standing up abruptly. I won't get my leg treated. It's been like this for years, and I'm used to it. He then sat back down and continued eating, his head bowed. An awkward silence fell over the table. Ken, feeling uncomfortable, decided it was time to leave. He made his excuses and walked home, his mind racing with what he had just heard. After the village chief left, David's temper flared. Julian, what was that about? The chief was still here. You have no manners at all. Dad, I wasn't trying to be rude to Uncle Ken. I just really don't want to get my leg treated. It can't be fixed, Dad. Why waste the money? You know our family's situation better than anyone, Julian said in frustration, his eyes turning red. Ethan understood. His brother wasn't refusing because he didn't want to be healed. He was refusing because of the cost. That was a problem he could solve. You old man, can't you see the boy is upset? Why are you still scolding him? Diana said, her heart aching for her son as she shot her husband a glare. David sighed. I'm just trying to do what's best for him. If his leg is fixed, it'll be easier for him to find a wife. Dad, I'm not getting married. Don't worry, I'll take care of you both, Julian said, thinking his father was worried about his old age. Are you talking nonsense? Your mother and I can take care of ourselves. You just need to take care of yourself, David retorted, angered by his son's stubbornness. Hearing the worry in his father's angry words, Julian's eyes grew redder. Dad, with the way I am, what girl would I marry? I'd just be a burden to her. It's better this way. You foolish boy. If you don't marry, who will keep you warm at night? Who will you talk to? Who will take care of you when you're sick? What will you do all by yourself? David's voice cracked, and tears welled up in his old eyes. Stop it, old man, Diana sobbed, pulling at his arm. Dad, Mom, your son has failed you, Julian said, looking at his white-haired parents, and dropped to his knees. The tall, strong man wept openly, tears and snot running down his face. He knew his parents worried about him and his brother. Now that his brother was settled, their worries had likely shifted entirely to him. Ethan's own eyes were red. He went over to his brother. "Get up, brother. You kneeling like this only makes them feel worse." Julian let Ethan help him up. "Let me get you some water to wash your face," Iris said gently, bringing a basin over. "Thanks, Iris. Dad, Mom, don't worry. He's just overwhelmed right now. I'll talk to him," Ethan said, reassuring his parents. Once Julian had washed his face and calmed down, Ethan put a hand on his shoulder. "Brother, it's been a long time since we really talked. Let's go for a walk." Julian nodded. He knew his brother had something to say. There was no denying it. His brother had changed. The two of them walked out into the cool night air. "Brother, you're only thinking about how much the treatment will cost. Have you thought about how much money you could make if your leg was fixed?" Ethan began, approaching the subject from a different angle. He saw a flicker of consideration in Julian's expression and continued. "Brother, you know what Mom and Dad want more than anything." "I know," Julian nodded. "They've always just wanted us to be okay. I was a real bastard before. I made them worry so much. It wasn't until Iris got pregnant that I finally woke up. Now I know what's important. I'm doing well now, brother, and I want you to be well too," Ethan said sincerely. "Ethan, I'm happy for you, that you've changed. But my situation is different. Even if he spent the money, there was no guarantee his leg could be fixed." "Brother, I know what you're thinking. Don't worry about the money. I haven't told you yet, but besides my factory job, I've started a business. I'm making a few hundred yuan a day," Ethan revealed. Julian stared at his brother as if seeing him for the first time. "A few hundred a day? What kind of business?" "Ethan, you're not doing anything illegal, are you?" That was his first thought. He knew the wages in the city. A few hundred a month was normal. A few hundred a day was unbelievable. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. "Brother, where's your mind going? I have a wife and kids on the way. I would never do anything illegal." "Good. That's good," Julian said, relieved by his brother's firm denial. "Remember that crawfish you ate tonight? You ate quite a lot of it," Ethan said with a grin. Julian blushed. "I remember. It was really good. That's my business. I sell spicy crawfish every day. It's incredibly popular right now. And brother, even if your leg can't be fixed, you can help me with the business." Julian listened, a new possibility dawning on him. Even if the treatment failed, he could still be useful, could still help his brother. He thought of Ethan working at the factory all day and then running a business at night and realized how hard he must be working. He finally nodded. "Okay, I'll go with you to get my leg treated." "That's my brother," Ethan said, a heavy weight lifting from his heart. "It's getting late, Ethan. Let's go home. Mom and Dad are waiting," Julian said with a small, hesitant smile. "Yeah," Ethan nodded. "Let's go home." Back at his own home, Ken couldn't stop thinking about the plan to treat Julian's leg. "Tina," he said to his wife. He'd always liked Julian. If it weren't for the boy's leg, he would have tried to set him up with their daughter, May, long ago. He was fairly certain his daughter had feelings for Julian, a fact that was obvious to anyone who wasn't blind. Ever since she was 16 and Julian had saved her from a venomous snakebite, sucking the poison from the wound without hesitation, she had been asking about him. At first, he hadn't noticed, but over time, it became clear. That was when his wife had put her foot down, forbidding May from even thinking about Julian. "What is it? If it's about the Yu family's oldest son, you can forget it. Don't think that just because they ply you with a few cheap drinks, you can just turn around and sell our daughter," Tina said, shooting her husband a sharp look. She knew that any dinner invitation from David Yu came with an agenda. It wasn't that she looked down on Julian for being poor. A young man could earn money. The boy was decent enough, but that leg. Because of his leg, no respectable factory in the city would hire him. He'd be stuck doing odd jobs, barely able to support himself. She only had one daughter, and she wouldn't let her walk into a life of hardship. "Honey, I didn't promise them anything. They didn't even mention May," Ken said, leaning in close with a boozy grin. "Ugh, you stink. Get away from me and go wash up," Tina snapped, waving her hand in front of her face. "Just let me finish what I was saying," Ken pleaded, hopping a foot away. "Spit it out then. I heard from David today that they're taking Julian to the city to get his leg treated. He figured if the leg was fixed, his wife would surely consent to the match." Tina scoffed. "That leg's been like that for years. You think it can be fixed now? I don't believe it for a second. Besides, even if it could be fixed, where would they get the money? They're the poorest family in the whole village. I think their second son, Ethan, is different now. Maybe he's earned some money," Ken speculated. Tina was unconvinced. "Him? That bum? Making money? Don't make me laugh. At least he had the decency to come back for the harvest this year." "You didn't taste the food he cooked tonight, Tina. It was better than any big restaurant in the county," Ken said, his mouth watering at the memory. "Enough of your nonsense. Unless that boy is standing in front of me on two good legs, my answer is no," Tina declared, turning her back on him. The next afternoon, as everyone was about to rest, a clear, sweet voice called from outside. Julian bro. Julian bro." Ethan peeked his head out. It was the chief's daughter, May. "Brother, A young lady is here to see you, he shouted deliberately. Everyone, on their way to nap, stopped and turned to look. Julian, halfway to his room, turned back. A young lady looking for him? His brother must be mistaken. He walked to the gate and saw a pretty young woman standing there, holding a heavy-looking bucket. He looked down and saw it was half full of crawfish. He quickly opened the gate. May, what are you doing here? He took the bucket from her, his hand accidentally brushing against hers. He nearly dropped the entire thing. Sorry, May, I didn't mean to do that, he stammered, flustered. It's okay, Julian bro. I know you're a gentleman, May said. Her cheeks flushed as she looked at him. Oh good. So the crawfish. My dad caught them. He sent them over for you. He also said. May trailed off, embarrassed. He also said he'd be coming over for dinner again tonight. He also said what? He said he's coming over for dinner tonight. I'll come get the bucket tomorrow, she said, then turned and ran off, a plan already forming in her mind to see him again. Hiding in the house, the rest of the family watched, a collective thought passing between. That night, as expected, the village chief, Kenyu, showed up for his spicy crawfish. Ethan, despite being exhausted from a full day's work, cooked again. Ken went home satisfied, with one thing confirmed. Julian was indeed going to the city to get his leg treated. When Ethan finally got to bed, it was already 10 o'clock. You must be exhausted today. Do your cuts hurt? Iris asked, looking with concern at the red marks on his hands and feet. They don't hurt, Iris. I put medicine on them, he said, pulling her gently into his arms. The embrace soothed away much of his fatigue. The next few days passed in a blur of hard work, and soon, the rice was all harvested. The next step was plowing the fields and planting the new seedlings. The first task was to get up before dawn to pull the young rice shoots from the nursery bed. Kyle, who at first kept breaking the delicate shoots, soon got the hang of it, his movements becoming faster and more efficient. Not bad, Kyle. You're getting fast, Ethan praised him. Of course, Ethan bro. I can't let you down, Kyle replied with a grin, wiping sweat from his brow. You're not letting anyone down. The whole village is saying how capable you are, Ethan said. They filled their baskets and carried the heavy bundles of seedlings on shoulder poles to the paddy fields. Have you ever planted rice before, Kyle? Ethan asked as he began tossing the bundles into the muddy water. Kyle shook his head. Never even seen it done. Well, today you'll get to see whether harvesting or planting is harder, Ethan said. Just then, David and Julian, having finished plowing another section, came over to help. Ethan, still remember how to do this? Julian teased. Of course, brother. Want to have a competition? See who's faster. Ethan shot back. In his previous life, he had often come back to help his parents during the harvest. You two go ahead. I'll be the judge, David said, already planting a row of seedlings. Dad, you should join in too. Ethan joked. I'm not falling for that. Then there'd be no one to judge, David replied, not missing a beat. Ethan bro, my foot feels kind of itchy, and it hurts a little, Kyle suddenly called out. Ethan's first thought was leeches. Kyle, get onto the dike, quick. When Kyle scrambled out of the water, Ethan saw it immediately. A thick, green leech was attached to each of his legs. Kyle saw them too, and let out a yelp, stumbling back into the paddy. Ethan caught him before he fell completely. Don't be afraid, Kyle. They're just leeches. I'll get them off. The leeches were fat and round, already full of blood. Dad, let me borrow your pipe for a second. David handed over his bamboo pipe. Ethan had his father take a few deep puffs to get the end glowing red, then touch the hot embers to each leech. The soft-bodied creatures immediately recoiled and dropped off. After washing the small, bleeding wounds with clean water, the bleeding quickly stopped. Kyle, maybe you should go back and rest. You don't have to come back to the field, Ethan suggested, thinking the boy must have been scared. No way, Ethan bro. I'm not going back. It was just a shock. It's just a little blood, Kyle said, surprisingly resolute. Once he knew what they were, he wasn't as frightened. All right, but be careful. Next time you feel an itch, lift your foot right away and slap it. You can knock them off before they attach. And so, with a new lesson learned, the four of them went back to their planting competition. After about 10 busy days, the harvest season came to an end. The family took a much-needed day of rest. That evening, as they sat watching television after dinner, Ethan spoke up. Brother, you should pack your things tonight. We're leaving tomorrow. Okay, Ethan. I'll go pack now, Julian said, getting up immediately. There wasn't much to pack, just a few changes of clothes. Dad, Mom, you should come with us. My brother will need someone to look after him while he's getting treatment, Ethan suggested. Maybe your mother should go with you. I'll stay here and look after the house, David said. The seedlings were newly planted, and the chickens and pigs needed care. You're a man. You can't handle all that. You should go. I'll stay, Diana countered. Ethan realized he'd forgotten about the livestock. How about this, he proposed. We can ask Uncle Ken to look after things for a week. After we see how my brother is doing, we can make a new plan. Ethan, is that really okay? Diana asked, hesitant to impose. What's not okay about it? I'm the one who let him become village chief in the first place, David said, standing up and heading for the door. The story came out then, a piece of family history Ethan had never known. Years ago, his father and Ken Yu had been the two main candidates for village chief. His father, seeing that they were best friends and the village was split, had voluntarily withdrawn, allowing Ken to win uncontested. Their bond had remained strong ever since. So that's why Dad was acting like such a big shot just now, Ethan laughed. His mother shot him a warning look. After sorting things out with the village chief, who readily agreed to help, the family finished their packing. That night, David went to the chief's house to drop off the key. Ken, my wife and I are taking our oldest to the city hospital tomorrow to get his leg looked at. I'll need to trouble you to look after our animals for a week or so. It's no trouble at all, David. It's great news. Tina and I will take good care of everything, Ken assured him. Tina, who had just walked in, added her own reassurance. Don't you worry about a thing. We'll make sure your chickens and pigs are well fed. Though she disapproved of a match between their children, she held no ill will toward David and his wife. After David left, their daughter May appeared. Dad, Mom, is Julian bro really going to the city to get his leg treated? She asked, her face alight with hope. If his leg was healed, her mother would have no reason to object. And what if he is? Don't think for a second, I don't know what's on your mind. It's not happening, Tina said, dashing her daughter's hopes with a bucket of cold water. Mom, even if his leg is healed, you'd still say no? May asked, her voice filled with disbelief. May, am I trying to hurt you? Julian's leg can't be fixed. I'm doing this for your own good, Tina sighed. What do you really think, Mom? Can't you just wish for something good to happen to them? May retorted, her voice rising with anger. May, don't you talk to your mother like that, Ken warned. May, furious, turned and stormed back to her room. If you won't agree, she thought, I'll just have to find a way myself. The next morning, the Yu family woke early, ate the leftovers from the night before, and, with their bags packed, walked to the village crossroads to wait for the bus. Thankfully, the bus wasn't crowded, and everyone found a seat. Ethan bought the tickets and sat down next to his wife. David and Diana sat in the first row, while Kyle, having learned his lesson from the last trip, wisely chose a window seat and motioned for Julian to join him. A moment later, a sharp, familiar voice cut through the air. Old man, with that chicken and all this other stuff, you'll have to buy an extra ticket. The conductor's face was a mask of disdain. Young lady, my chicken is under the seat. It's not taking up any space. Why should I have to buy another ticket? David replied, his voice rising in anger. Iris, you stay here. I'll go see what's going on with Mom and Dad, Ethan said. Okay, just talk to them. Don't argue, she cautioned. Don't worry, I will. Ethan walked to the front of the bus and cursed under his breath. It was the same woman from last time. What rotten luck. Old man, you've brought too much stuff. It's taking up too much space. Chickens, geese, all these bags. It's making the bus smell. You have to buy another ticket, the conductor repeated, her voice full of annoyance. She despised it when country folk came into the city, carrying their entire farms with them. Ma'am, what exactly do you mean by that? Please explain it to me, Ethan said, his voice calm but cold. He had overheard her last comment. The conductor glanced up, startled to see the same handsome and troublesome young man from before. Ma'am, I've never heard of a rule that says you have to buy a ticket for your luggage, Ethan pressed. He knew she was just trying to squeeze an extra fare out of his elderly father. The conductor flushed, regretting her decision to challenge the old man. Now she was stuck. Young man, this doesn't concern you. Please return to your seat. How does it not concern me? Are you saying I can't intervene when you're trying to bully my parents? Ethan's words made the conductor's face fall. What terrible luck that this old man was his father. Just then, Julian, noticing the commotion, came to the front. Seeing another tall young man arrive, the conductor's confidence crumbled. Other passengers began to speak up. Miss, everyone brings things from home when they come to the city. Your fee isn't reasonable. That's right. Making him buy a whole extra ticket is just a ripoff. The conductor's face burned with humiliation. Fine. Don't buy it, she snapped, turning to walk away. Hold on. You think you can just leave after that? Ethan called out. She could insult him, but not his parents and his wife. I already said they don't have to buy the ticket. What more do you want? She demanded. Julian tugged on his brother's sleeve, signaling him to let it go. But Ethan ignored him. You kept calling him old man, with that contemptuous look on your face. You were trying to force him to buy a ticket against the rules because you thought my parents were easy targets. So what? I'm not making you buy it anymore. What do you want from me? She retorted. Ethan, let it go. Don't cause a scene, Diana whispered. Mom, don't worry. This will be over in a second, he said, then leaned casually against a support pole. What do I want? An apology will do. Why should I apologize? I didn't hit anyone. Some country people can't even afford a ticket, but still want to ride the bus. If you're so great, why don't you walk? At that moment, Kyle, who had been woken by the argument, came forward. What's going on, Ethan bro? The conductor's heart sank. Another tall, young helper. Someone was bullying your aunt and uncle, Ethan said, his eyes flicking to the conductor. Who? Who's got the guts to do that? Kyle said, putting on his most thuggish expression and glaring at the conductor. Intimidated, the conductor finally relented, muttering an apology. Old folks, it was my mistake. I shouldn't have tried to sell you an extra ticket. As the conductor walked away, Ethan called after her one last time. Ma'am, don't look down on country people. Go back 3 generations, and we all come from the countryside. Everyone returned to their seats. Iris whispered to her husband, you really handled that well. Hee. Thanks for the compliment, wife. Ethan said, pulling her into his arms with a grin. The rest of the bus ride was smooth and uneventful. They arrived at the New Peace apartment complex around 11 in the morning. Dad, Mom, brother, we're here. Ethan, you live in here? David asked, looking at the impressive iron gate at the entrance. He could see trees planted inside, and the buildings were tall and painted a clean white. In his 50-plus years, the biggest place he'd ever been was the county seat, which didn't have many grand buildings. To him, these 5- and 6-story buildings were skyscrapers. Yes, Dad, let's go in, Ethan said, hefting 2 large woven bags. Ethan, you have guests. The security guard, Mr. Chun, called out. Mr. Chun, this is my mom and dad, and my older brother. I'm bringing them to the city to stay for a while, Ethan replied cheerfully. He pulled a bundle of dried bamboo shoots, some fresh peppers, and a handful of green beans from one of the bags. These are just some things from our village. Take them home and add them to your dinner. No, Ethan. You're too kind. Keep them for yourselves, Mr. Chun said, shaking his head. He could tell from their clothes that the family wasn't well off. Are you saying you don't want them, Mr. Chun? Ethan teased. Mr. Chun laughed and accepted the gifts. You clever boy. All right, I'll take them. If you need any help, just let me know. Kyle, you take my parents upstairs. Iris has the key. I'm going to put these things in the storage unit first, Ethan said. He knew most of the poultry and produce were intended for his in-laws. It was too much trouble to haul them up and down, and the live chickens and geese would make a mess. You got it, Ethan bro. Kyle said. I'll go with you, Ethan. That's a lot for one person to carry, Julian offered. All right, brother. Come on, you can see my storage unit. The 2 brothers headed off. At the apartment, when David and Diana stepped inside, their eyes went wide. David walked right in, marveling at everything. Diana, however, noticed Kyle taking off his shoes and immediately called her husband back. Old man, come here. David, who had just plopped down on the sofa to test its softness, scurried over. Diana, that sofa is so comfortable, he exclaimed. He had already spotted the refrigerator, the washing machine, and the color television. You old fool. Didn't you see Kyle take his shoes off? You just walked right in with your dirty work shoes. Diana scolded. David looked down at his canvas shoes and grinned sheepishly. Dad, Mom, it's okay. Don't worry about it today. I'll clean the floors tomorrow, Iris said. No, Iris. Get us some slippers, Diana insisted. She wouldn't have them tracking dirt all over the nice floor. Iris smiled and got 2 new pairs of slippers from the shoe cabinet. Iris, how much is the rent for this place? Diana asked, looking around. It's $60 a month, Iris answered honestly. Diana gasped. 60. In the village, they lived in their own house, a bit run down, but it didn't cost a penny. Mom, Dad, have a seat. I'll make you some tea, Iris said, going to the kitchen. Diana followed her, taking in the modern appliances, the rice cooker, the gas stove, the cabinets. She'd seen such things in television commercials, but never up close. Iris, did you and Ethan buy all this? Diana asked, her mind calculating the immense cost. Mom, we don't have that kind of money. This all belongs to the landlord, but we can use it, Iris explained. The landlord's son immigrated and couldn't take it all with him, so he left it here. Wow, Iris, this place is like a 5-star luxury hotel, David said, touching everything, his eyes shining with unconcealed wonder. Dad, are you joking? Ethan asked, having just walked in with his brother. He heard his father's words and couldn't help but laugh. Was his dad being a little too dramatic? It was like he was a country mouse seeing the big city for the very first time. The moment Julian stepped inside, he froze, unsure where to even put his feet. He was still wearing his canvas work shoes. Back home, the floors were packed earth. Only his and Ethan's rooms had a layer of rough concrete. Looking at the apartment his brother lived in now, it was like comparing heaven and earth. And to think, his brother had stayed at their home for 10 days without saying a single word about the difference. Brother, what are you waiting for? Here, put on these slippers and come sit with Mom and Dad, Ethan said, handing him a new pair. Julian hesitantly slipped them on and walked inside. Staring at all the modern appliances, he could hardly believe his brother was living so well in the city. Iris brought him a cup of tea. Dad, Mom, brother, you all watch some TV. I'll get lunch started. Ethan bro, I should probably head back to the factory, Kyle said. He needed a good long sleep. The long bus ride had left him feeling drowsy and sick. Not so fast, Kyle. Stay and have lunch first, Ethan insisted. It was already that time. Kyle, why don't you go lie down in the guest room for a while? I'll call you when the food is ready, Iris offered, noticing he looked unwell. It's okay, Ethan bro, sister-in-law. I'll just close my eyes here on the sofa for a bit. Kyle closed his eyes, thinking a short nap would help. He felt awkward about taking a bedroom, knowing there were only 2. One for Ethan and his wife, and the other for his parents. His brother Julian would probably sleep on the sofa, which folded out into a bed. Seeing that Kyle had fallen asleep in an instant, Ethan retrieved a thin blanket and gently covered him. Dad, Mom, you two should also go lie down in the bedroom. I'll call you when it's time to eat, Ethan said, figuring his parents must be tired too. We're not tired. You just go cook. Your old man is hungry, David said, patting his stomach. In truth, he was craving his son's cooking. He had to admit, the boy's food was delicious, even better than his wife's. All right, Dad. It won't be long, Ethan said with a smile, grabbing meat and vegetables from the refrigerator and heading into the kitchen. He loved this feeling, having his whole family together. The moment Ethan stepped into the kitchen, Iris followed him. Diana had wanted to help, but seeing the young couple looked like they had something to discuss, she stayed back. Iris, what are you doing in here? Go get some rest. I came to help you wash the vegetables. I'll be your sous chef, she said with a playful wink. But helping was only part of the reason. More importantly, she had something she wanted to discuss with him. Just then, Ethan turned to her. It was the perfect opportunity to bring something up he couldn't mention in front of his parents. Iris, I need to talk to you about something. Ethan, I need to talk to you about something. They both spoke at once, then paused and looked at each other, breaking into a smile. You first, Iris, Ethan said. Ladies first, especially when it's my wife. All right, I'll go first then. This afternoon, I want to take Dad, Mom, and your brother to buy some clothes. She'd had the idea back in the village, but the nearest market was miles away, and the selection was poor. Honey, I love you. We were thinking the exact same thing, Ethan said happily, planting a kiss on her cheek. He was planning the very same thing. He was even more thrilled that she had thought of it herself, not just for his parents, but for his brother too. That was truly special. Iris was surprised too. The old Ethan would never have thought of buying clothes for his parents, let alone his brother. Ethan, have you no shame? Your parents and brother are right outside, she said, remembering where they were. It's fine, honey. Mom and Dad won't peek. And my brother is even less likely to. He's a block of wood who hasn't quite figured things out yet, Ethan said with a grin, stealing another quick kiss. Ethan, are you going to cook or not? Iris asked, her face flushing. The rice is already cooking. Now I'm about to chop the meat, he said, gesturing to the pork on the cutting board. Then I'll wash the vegetables, she said, placing tomatoes and water spinach in the basin. Iris, tomorrow let's take my parents to visit yours. We can also see if your father knows any reputable orthopedic surgeons, Ethan said as he sliced the meat. Okay, Iris agreed. Their parents had never met. Even if it wasn't for his brother's leg, they should get to know each other. Honey, do you think we have some kind of telepathy? We're always thinking the same things. Since his rebirth, he felt this connection with Iris more and more strongly. Silly, our hearts are in the same place, so of course our minds follow, Iris said with a gentle smile, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. All right, Iris, the vegetables are washed. You should go out and chat with my parents and brother, Ethan said. The cooking fumes would be heavy soon, which wasn't good for her or the babies. He gently pushed her out of the kitchen. Iris, come sit and rest. Let Ethan handle things in there, Diana said, patting the empty space on the sofa next to her. You chat with Mom, Iris. I'll go help Ethan, Julian said, standing up. He'd been thinking about the stoves, charcoal, disposable bowls, and the tricycle he'd seen in the storage unit earlier. He figured it was all for his brother's business. He was intensely curious but hadn't had a chance to ask. He wasn't holding out much hope for his leg, but he was fascinated by his brother's small enterprise. With his disability, no good factory would hire him. But running a stall, being his own boss, that was a way to avoid being at the mercy of others. With that thought, Julian pushed open the kitchen door. Ethan was in the middle of stir-frying peppers and pork. The spicy fumes made Julian sneeze. Brother, close the door. We don't want the smoke getting into the living room and bothering Mom and Dad, Ethan called over his shoulder. Oh right, Julian said, shutting the door. Brother, you can just wait outside. It won't be long, Ethan said, assuming his brother was just hungry. I'm not hungry, Ethan. I just wanted to ask, when are you going to start up your stall again? Julian asked, rubbing his rough hands together nervously. Ethan understood immediately. His brother was eager to start working with him. No rush, brother. First, we need to go visit my in-laws. You all haven't met them yet, have you? The leg was the most important thing. The business could wait a day or two. Julian nodded. That was true. Their families had never met. Now that they were in the same city, not to visit would be a great discourtesy. You're right. I got ahead of myself. Ethan smiled. Don't worry, brother. You'll have plenty to keep you busy soon enough. He made a mental note to stop by the factory that afternoon after dropping Kyle off. He needed to check in with the director and the department head and drop off some of the vegetables his parents had brought. The factory had been on harvest leave, but the head office hadn't, and they were finishing up a large order. Once that order was closed, he would be getting a significant bonus. Julian watched his brother smiling as he cooked and figured he must be thinking of something pleasant. Brother, can you take these 2 dishes out? I just have a soup and one more dish to make, Ethan said, pointing to the finished tomato and eggs and the stir-fried pork. Sure, Julian said, taking the two glistening dishes. His brother certainly wasn't shy with the cooking oil. At the dinner table, David grumbled about having to wash his hands before eating, a city affectation he found fussy. You old goat. No one will think you're a mute if you just keep quiet, Diana said, giving his side a gentle pinch. Dad, it's a good habit. You wash away the germs so you don't get a stomachache, Ethan explained with a smile. The dining table itself was a fine piece of furniture, made of what looked like high-quality wood. Diana started to worry. All these things belonged to the landlord. What if they broke something? Could they afford to replace it? The thought made her lose her appetite. Mom, why aren't you eating? Iris asked. Ethan, Iris. All these things must be expensive. What if we break something? We'd have to pay, wouldn't we? Ethan understood her anxiety. Mom, everything here is practically new. The landlord immigrated not long after moving in. Don't worry about it, he said, placing a piece of meat in her bowl. And even if something did break, we could get it fixed. It's not made of paper. Just relax and eat. His father and Kyle needed no such encouragement. They were already eating with gusto. Diana, Ethan's not a child. He knows what he's doing. David mumbled around a mouthful of rice. Diana finally began to eat. Her worries eased. After the meal, Ethan announced, Kyle, I'll take you back to the factory after this. Then, to his family, he said, Dad, Mom, Brother, Iris, you all rest at home this afternoon. I'll be back later. Go on, son. Don't worry about us, David said with a wave. He knew his son had business to attend to, and the last thing they should do was get in his way. Dad, no rush. I'll clear the dishes before I go. You all take your time eating, Ethan said. Let's go, brother. I'm done, Kyle announced, having scraped his bowl clean. Not a single grain of rice was left. Ethan didn't know it, but ever since their trip to the countryside, Kyle had developed a new appreciation for the hard work that went into every meal and refused to waste a single grain. Just a minute. I'll wash the dishes first, Ethan said. He couldn't let his parents start cleaning on their first day. You boys go on and take care of your business. We'll handle things here, Diana insisted. That's right, son. Your mother's here. Go on, David added, letting out a satisfied burp. Ethan finally relented. He first went to the storage unit and packed a basket with some local specialties and homegrown vegetables. What are all the vegetables for, Ethan bro? Are you planning to cook your own meals at the factory? Kyle asked. You wish. Not even the director gets that privilege. Ethan laughed, playfully swatting the back of Kyle's head. These are for the director and the department head. A taste of some real, natural vegetables. Oh, I see. You're really good at managing relationships, Ethan bro, Kyle said, impressed. It's not about that. They've both helped me out a lot. This is just a small token of my appreciation, Ethan clarified. Back at the factory, he dropped Kyle off with a bag of fresh dates and chestnuts from home. My parents saved these for you. You're practically their second son now, Ethan joked. Kyle beamed. I'd be happy to be. Tell them I said thank you. He then ran off to his dorm to catch up on sleep. Ethan took the rest of the produce to the director's office. Director Gu, I'm back, he announced, placing the items on the desk. Ethan, my boy, you're back? What's all this? Gordon Gu asked with a smile. My parents wanted me to bring these for you. They came to the city with me. Ethan explained, briefly mentioning his brother's situation. Gordon accepted the gifts graciously. Director, I'm going to stop by the department head's office now. You get back to work, Ethan said, preparing to leave. Wait, Ethan, about your brother's treatment. Things are quiet at the factory right now. The last big order is wrapping up. You get things arranged, and I'll give you some time off. Don't worry, it'll be paid leave. Gordon knew treating his brother would involve a lot of running around, and with the chairman's own son attached to Ethan's hip, it was a good time to be generous. Really, Director? How much time? Ethan asked, overjoyed. This was exactly what he needed. Is half a month enough? Gordon asked with a smile. He'd received a hefty bonus for the last project, so he was in a good mood. More than enough. Thank you, Director. Ethan practically flew out of the office. He delivered the other half of the produce to Louis Liu, the department head, who was touched by the gesture. When Ethan told him about the paid leave, Louis readily agreed, telling him to focus on his family. Ethan then went down to the workshop and found Leo Liu cleaning a machine. After giving him 2 packs of cigarettes and explaining his leave, Leo promised to keep things running smoothly. The two of them spent the rest of the afternoon inspecting and cleaning all the equipment, finishing up just as the workday was ending. On his way home, Ethan stopped by the market. He bought some braised pig ears, fresh cilantro, and a small bag of peanuts. He also bought a large pork bone for soup, remembering the sweet corn his mother had brought from home. The corn at home was an early ripening variety, and his mother had picked 3 or 4 dozen of the best ears, most of which he knew were intended for his in-laws. He arrived back at the complex, grabbed a few vegetables and 2 ears of corn from the storage unit, and headed upstairs. Iris, seeing that Ethan wasn't back yet, had already started the rice. Dad, Mom, Brother, Iris, I'm home, Ethan called as he walked in. Julian hurried over to take the bags from his hands. Ethan, what did you buy now? Diana asked, seeing the bags. It must have cost a lot of money. Not much, Mom. Just a few things for dinner tonight. What's for dinner, son? Anything to go with a drink? I smell braised meat, David said, sniffing at the plastic bag in Julian's hand like a bloodhound. Not braised meat, Dad. Braised pig ears. And peanuts. A little something for your drink. Ethan was planning to open the bottle of 87 Moutai for his father. Pig ears. Crispy and delicious. Perfect with a drink. Son, no need to buy any liquor, David said, and like a magician, he produced a bottle of Moutai. Ethan recognized it as the one Kyle had bought for him. His father had managed to sneak it all the way to the city without anyone noticing. You old devil. Are you asking for it? You're still thinking about drinking here. Diana fumed, grabbing a feather duster from atop the TV and taking a swing at him. David dodged, hiding behind Julian. You old goat, don't run. What did you promise me before we left? You said you wouldn't drink here. Diana brandished the feather duster. Did I say that, Diana? I don't seem to recall. David feigned ignorance. He was in his son's house with no farm work to do. Not having a drink would be a crime against himself. Besides, he couldn't leave such fine liquor at home, not with Ken Yu's nose for good alcohol. You dare deny it. Stand still. Diana chased him around the sofa. Iris was about to intervene, but Ethan, who was busy in the kitchen, quickly pulled her back. Iris, don't worry about them. Let them be. Haven't you noticed my brother is sitting there as calm as a mountain? But what if they really start fighting? She worried. Ethan could see the concern in her eyes and gently patted her head. Honey, relax. My mom knows how hard to hit. She won't actually hurt him. Reassured, Iris nodded. I didn't realize your dad was so afraid of your mom. Oh, he's not afraid. He just lets her win, Ethan said, and went back to his cooking. By the time Ethan called out that dinner was ready, the playful chase had ended with his mother holding his father by the ear, and his father theatrically crying out for mercy. The family sat down to a happy meal of creamy corn and pork bone soup, steamed egg custard, a large platter of pig ears with cilantro, and stir-fried water spinach. Son, what's in this pig ear dish? It tastes a little strange, but it's wonderfully fragrant and crunchy. I love it, David exclaimed after a large bite. That's cilantro, Dad, Ethan explained. It wasn't a common ingredient at the time, but he knew it paired perfectly with cold dishes. The meal was a resounding success. As Ethan was clearing the table, he told his family the good news. Mom, Dad, the factory director gave me half a month of paid leave so I can focus on getting my brother's leg treated. Paid leave? That's wonderful, David said, then slipped downstairs to a quiet spot for a smoke. Let me wash the dishes, son. You just show me how it's done in the city, Diana offered. It's okay, Mom. It's just a few bowls. It won't tire me out, Ethan said, carrying the dishes into the kitchen. As he washed, he hummed a happy tune. He loved these days, so full of happiness and contentment. The next morning, after a simple breakfast of pork congee and boiled eggs, Ethan made an announcement. Dad, Mom, brother, let's all go shopping today. This afternoon, we'll go visit my in-laws. David, eager to see the city, readily agreed. Diana, knowing they needed to bring gifts for their first meeting with the other parents, nodded as well. Ethan took them to a popular commercial district. It wasn't a fancy mall, but a bustling street lined with shops selling all sorts of clothing and shoes at reasonable prices. Though it was only a little after 8, the shops were already opening for the day. Ethan, this place is so big. There are so many clothes, my eyes don't know where to look, Diana said, her head swiveling from one storefront to the next. It's the city, Mom. Of course it's bigger than the village, Ethan replied with a smile. Iris, your belly is getting bigger. Why don't you buy a couple of maternity outfits? Diana suggested, spotting a store specializing in maternity wear. The clothes would be looser and more comfortable for her in the summer heat. Mom, let's look at other shops first, Iris said, wanting to buy things for her in-laws and Julian before herself. But Diana was already walking into the store. Your mom's right, Iris. You should get a couple of outfits, Ethan said, taking her hand and following his mother inside. In the end, at her mother-in-law's insistence, Iris picked out 2 cute, cotton maternity dresses. They were 15 yuan each. As Iris was about to pay, Diana stepped in and handed the money to the shopkeeper. Mom, you can't pay for this, Iris said, trying to give the money back. Diana's expression turned serious. Iris, since you married into our family, you've suffered a lot. I feel terrible about it. We couldn't even afford to buy you any jewelry for your wedding. Let me at least buy you these 2 dresses. She pressed the money back into the shopkeeper's hand. Seeing his mother's eyes getting misty, Ethan gently stopped his wife. Iris, it's a gift from Mom's heart. You should let her. Iris relented. She would just give her in-laws some extra money when they went back home. Next, Ethan led them to a store for older adults. Iris picked out 2 high-quality outfits for her in-laws. Such nice clothes aren't suitable for a rough old farmer like me, David said, trying to take the shirt off. Dad, don't forget we're visiting my in-laws this afternoon. Are you sure you want to wear your old clothes? Ethan whispered. David froze. That was right. His son-in-law's father was a hospital deputy director, and his mother was a teacher. They were important people. Showing up in his worn farm clothes would embarrass his son. He stopped protesting. After Iris helped her mother-in-law try on a floral blouse and a long skirt, even David had to admit, "Diana, you look like a different person. Very nice." But when Diana heard the outfit cost 60 yuan, she immediately wanted to change out of it. Ethan used the same trick, whispering a few words in her ear about making a good first impression. In the end, Iris insisted, and they bought a new outfit and a pair of leather shoes for both of his parents. Finally, they went to a men's clothing store. Because of Julian's slight limp and his sturdy build, Iris chose 2 casual, comfortable outfits and a pair of soft-soled athletic shoes for him. The shopping trip ended up costing several hundred yuan, but everyone was happy with their new things, even if Diana couldn't stop muttering about how much money they had spent. On her way home from shopping, Iris found a payphone and called her parents. Both of them arranged to leave work and hurry home. Her mother, Elaine, thinking she should prepare a proper meal for their guests, rode her bicycle to the market. She bought fish, ribs, pork belly, and some fruit, then rushed home to clean the house from top to bottom. Just as she finished, her husband, Harrison, walked in. "Elaine, you're home? Our in-laws are coming this afternoon. Do we have enough food in the house?" "I know. I've already been to the market," Elaine said, finally sitting down for a sip of tea. "It seems Iris called both of us," Harrison mused. "She was probably worried we wouldn't treat them right." "That precious daughter of yours values her in-laws more than her own parents," Elaine said, a hint of jealousy in her voice. Now, what's there to be jealous of? If Iris is good to her in-laws, they'll treat her well, and that husband of hers will appreciate her more," Harrison said, pouring her another cup of tea. "I suppose you're right," Elaine conceded with a smile. As long as her daughter was happy in her new family, that was all that mattered. "Harrison, maybe we should change our clothes," Elaine suggested. She thought it would be better to wear something a little older, a little more ordinary. Harrison understood immediately and nodded. Meanwhile, at Ethan's apartment, the family was packing the gifts they would bring. "Ethan, don't forget the 2 chickens and the goose," Diana called. Soon, everyone's hands were full. Ethan carried the poultry. Julian carried 20 ears of sweet corn and 10 pounds of chestnuts. David carried 5 pounds of homemade sweet potato starch, 5 pounds of red beans, and a conspicuously large watermelon. Diana carried 2 jars of wild honey, having saved 2 for her daughter-in-law. Iris carried the lightest load, a few pounds of dates, a bag of walnuts, and some dried bamboo shoots. As the family procession walked out of the apartment complex, people stared. "Are they moving?" Ethan just cheerfully called out. "We're going to visit my in-laws." Iris shot him a look. "Why are you shouting?" She had tried to talk her in-laws out of bringing so much, but they had insisted. Ethan hailed 3 tricycle rickshaws to carry them and their mountain of gifts. When they arrived, Harrison and Elaine were already downstairs to greet them. They were taken aback by the sheer volume of things the Yu family had brought. It looked like they'd packed up their entire farm. After warm introductions were made, the 2 families went upstairs. "Mom, these are chickens and a goose my parents raised themselves. Where should we put them?" Ethan asked his mother-in-law. "You are all far too kind," Elaine said, touched by their generosity. She knew that free-range poultry was expensive, and she could see that the rest of the bags were filled with genuine, high-quality goods from the countryside, things you couldn't easily buy in the city. Seeing that Iris hadn't lost any weight but had in fact gotten a little rounder, she knew her daughter was being well cared for. "They're just things from our own home. They're not worth much. Please don't mind them," Diana said, feeling a little intimidated by the nice apartment. After the initial greetings, everyone sat down to chat. As they sat together drinking tea, the 2 mothers quickly warmed to each other. "Elaine, I hope you don't mind if I call you that. You're younger than me," Diana said, wanting to break the formal ice. "Of course not. In that case, I'll call you Sister Diana," Elaine replied. Now that she had accepted her daughter's marriage, it was time to be a proper family. Soon, the 2 women were chatting like old friends. But Diana's cheerfulness was tinged with guilt. "Elaine, our family has done your daughter wrong. Ethan was so immature before, and he made her suffer. On his behalf, I apologize to you both," Diana said, her eyes welling up. Looking around at their comfortable home, she felt a pang of shame. Her daughter-in-law, a beautiful girl from a family of intellectuals, could have married anyone. It was a miracle she'd ended up with their family. "Mom, it was my fault. You can yell at me or hit me when we get home, but please don't apologize in front of my in-laws," Ethan interjected, unwilling to let his mother take the blame for his past mistakes. "Mom, please don't say that. I'm very happy now. Ethan has changed. He's a good man," Iris said, dabbing at her mother-in-law's eyes with a handkerchief. "Sister Diana, you've done nothing wrong," Elaine said sincerely. "It's true I didn't approve of my son-in-law before, but he's a new man now. He's responsible and ambitious. That's all that matters. Let's not talk about the past." "The women are getting all sentimental," Harrison cut in, trying to lighten the mood. "The past is the past. What matters is that things are good now, and will be good in the future." The tension in the room dissipated, and both Diana and Elaine managed to smile. "Julian, bring those 2 jars of honey over here," Diana called to her older son. "Sister Diana, This must be your older son, Elaine said, noticing the slight limp in the young man's walk. Yes, this is Julian. He's 28 this year, Diana said, a hint of sadness in her voice. Is he married? Not yet, Diana said with a shake of her head. Elaine didn't press further, assuming the leg was the reason. Julian brought the honey over. Auntie, this is wild honey. My mom said it's for you. Elaine looked at the young man. He was tall and handsome, with strong features. Such a shame about his leg, she thought. Thank you, Julian, she said kindly. She could tell the honey was of exceptional quality. Sister Diana, you should have kept this for yourself. I heard city people like to drink honey water for their skin, Diana explained. I saved 2 jars for Iris. After some friendly back and forth, Diana agreed to take 1 jar back with her. Elaine, seeing that it was nearly 5 o'clock, stood up to start dinner. Let me help you, Diana offered, and the 2 women headed to the kitchen, chatting like they had known each other for years. In the kitchen, Elaine and Diana worked together, one washing rice, the other washing vegetables. As they chatted, Elaine couldn't help but ask, Sister Diana, about Julian's leg. He had polio as a child, Diana said with a sigh, wiping away a tear. We didn't have the money to treat it properly then. Oh, the poor boy. What a shame, Elaine said sympathetically. In the living room, Ethan waited for his father to go to the restroom, then turned to his father-in-law. Dad, there's something I'd like to ask for your help with. What is it, Ethan? Just ask. You're a deputy director at the hospital, right? I was wondering if you know any good orthopedic surgeons. Who needs to see one? You probably don't know this, but the hospital I work at specializes in orthopedics, Harrison replied. It's for my brother. I want to get his leg looked at. Your brother? Harrison said, surprised. He hadn't noticed anything wrong. He had polio as a child, and because we didn't have money. Julian, would you mind if I took a look at your leg? Harrison asked. Based on what he'd seen, he didn't think Julian had polio. Polio was a severe disease, and most patients needed crutches to walk. Julian nodded and rolled up his left pant leg. Harrison examined it carefully. The leg was well developed, with no signs of atrophy. The only abnormality was a small, bony protrusion near his ankle. He was certain it wasn't polio. That bony growth, however, would require an X-ray to diagnose properly. Some quack doctor must have misdiagnosed him, Harrison thought, his anger rising. This was malpractice. This is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous, Harrison exclaimed, slamming his hand on the coffee table. The sudden noise brought Elaine and Diana rushing out of the kitchen. From the other side, David emerged from the restroom, saw his son-in-law's angry face, assumed Ethan was the cause, and smacked him on the back of the head. Dad, what did you hit me for? Ethan asked, completely bewildered. You brat. Were you giving Iris a hard time again? Dad, you've misunderstood Ethan. Iris began, rushing to his side. You misunderstood my son-in-law, Harrison said, embarrassed by the scene. Dad, you've got it all wrong. Uncle Harrison was just looking at my leg, Julian explained, feeling guilty. David, realizing his mistake but too proud to admit it, mumbled, I was just swatting a mosquito. Dad, what did you mean by outrageous? Is my brother's leg treatable? Ethan asked, sensing there was more to his father-in-law's outburst. Your brother doesn't have polio. As for what it is, we'll need to get an X-ray at the hospital tomorrow to be sure. If it wasn't polio, the chances of a full recovery were high. It's not polio. Dad, are you serious? Ethan's eyes lit up. Brother, there's hope for your leg, he cried, hugging Julian tightly as tears streamed down his face. He had carried so much guilt for so long, and now, finally, he could make things right. Julian was overwhelmed with emotion. He had always dreamed of walking normally. The 2 brothers clung to each other, weeping with joy. Harrison, are you sure? My son doesn't have polio. His leg can be fixed, David asked, his voice trembling. It's true. You were deceived by an incompetent doctor. We'll know for sure after the examination tomorrow, Harrison confirmed. Thank you, Harrison. You're a great benefactor to our family, David said, overcome, and dropped to his knees, tears finally breaking free. Harrison and the others rushed to help him up. What are you doing? You'll shorten my life with this, Harrison said, settling the emotional man on the sofa. Sister Diana, this is wonderful news, Elaine said, her own eyes red. Good people are rewarded. God wouldn't be unkind to a family like yours. It's all thanks to you, Diana said, her heart full of gratitude. This was all because of their good fortune in having Iris as a daughter-in-law. This is our fault for not having the money to go to a proper hospital. We trusted a quack and delayed his treatment for so many years, Diana lamented. That night, Elaine cooked a feast. With everyone in high spirits, Harrison and David started drinking again, bonding like old friends over their shared love of liquor. The toasts were frequent and heartfelt. Tomorrow, Julian, just come straight to the hospital and find me, Harrison said, having decided to take on the case himself. Thank you so much, David and Diana said, their gratitude overflowing. After a long and happy evening, Ethan and his family headed home. The next morning, they were at the hospital early. Ethan went to register while Iris took his parents and brother to her father's office. Iris took his parents and brother to her father's office. "Where's Ethan?" Harrison asked. "He's registering, Dad," Iris replied. Soon, Ethan joined them. "Dad, I've got my brother registered. When can he get the x-ray?" "It won't be until 8:30. The technician isn't here yet. Do you have something to do?" Harrison asked, noticing his son-in-law seemed to be in a hurry. "Yes, I have an exam today. I'll have to rely on you to look after things here." "An exam can't be missed. And I'll likely be your brother's attending physician, so you can go without worry," Harrison said. He was pleased with Ethan's newfound ambition and was happy to help. "Thank you, Dad. I'll go then," Ethan said, relieved. He pulled Iris into the hallway for a quick word. "I'm sorry to leave you with all this." "Don't worry, my dad is here." "Good luck," she said with a smile, making a fist to cheer him on. "Thanks, my dear wife," he said, stealing a quick kiss before heading out. When Ethan returned to the hospital around 11:30, he learned that his brother had already been admitted. He bought lunch for everyone from the hospital cafeteria. "How was the exam?" Harrison asked when Ethan brought him his food. "I think it went well. They've already admitted my brother." "Is it serious?" "The problem with your brother's leg isn't severe. He has a small, extra bone that likely formed while he was in the womb. We'll just need to surgically remove it. After a period of recovery, he'll be able to walk like a normal person." It was a relatively simple procedure that he could perform himself. "That's wonderful news. Dad, you should eat before your food gets cold." Now that he knew his brother could be healed, a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "Dad, about how much will the procedure cost?" He needed to know how much money he had and when he should restart his business. After the surgery, he'll need to stay in the hospital for at least a month. The surgery and hospital stay will probably cost around 3,000 yuan, Harrison estimated. 3,000 yuan. That was a lot, but manageable. He had enough. Whatever he spent, he could earn back. Seeing the look on his son-in-law's face, Harrison thought he was worried about the money. "Ethan, if you're short, I can lend you some. You can pay me back later," he offered gently. "Thank you, Dad. I'll let you know if I need it," Ethan said, grateful for the thought. Harrison had arranged a private room for Julian, with a separate bed for a family member to stay overnight, but had instructed the hospital to charge them the standard rate for a regular ward. He had told the nurses not to let the family know. Ethan went from his father-in-law's office to his brother's new room. His parents, Iris, and Julian were all there. "Brother, you'll be staying here for a while. The surgery will probably be scheduled in the next few days. Don't worry, it's not a major issue," Ethan said, sitting on the spare bed. "I know, Ethan. And thank Uncle Harrison for me," Julian said, feeling more at ease. But then the thought of the cost resurfaced. "Ethan, this surgery must be expensive. Our family situation. Maybe we should just forget it." "Brother, don't be silly. Of course we're not going to forget it. It's not that much money, only a little over 1,000. Don't worry about it. Once my exams are done, I'll start up my stall again, and the money will come in. Trust me," Ethan said, telling a white lie about the cost to ease their worries. "Julian, your brother is right. We'll sell everything we own if we have to get your leg fixed. I want to see you get married one day," David said sternly. "That's right, son. You're going to have this surgery, and we'll figure out the money," Diana added. "Dad, Mom, brother, don't worry about the money. We have some saved up." Iris finally spoke up. "My wife is the best," Ethan whispered to her. Iris pretended not to hear, but a blush crept up her cheeks. "Dad, you stay here with my brother. I'll take Mom and Iris home to get some rest," Ethan said. "All right, you go on. I'll stay here," David agreed. As they were leaving, Diana promised, "I'll bring dinner over for you both tonight." Back at the apartment, Ethan downed a large glass of water. "Mom, Iris, you two take a nap. I have to go to my next exam," he said, checking his watch. "Wait, Ethan," Diana said, taking out a small, black cloth pouch from her room and pulling out a wad of cash. "I know you weren't telling the truth. The surgery will cost more than that. Here is 630 yuan. It's all your father and I have. Once we sell the grain, we'll have a little more. Mom, I have enough money for now, and I'll be earning more in a couple of days. You should keep this," Ethan said, his heart aching at the sight of the worn bills. "Mom, you should save that money for my brother's wedding. Once his leg is healed, it will be easier for him to find a wife," Iris added gently. "We'll worry about a wedding later. Your own children will be born soon, and you'll need money. I can't just think about our oldest and ignore you," Diana insisted. "How about this, Mom? If I'm short on the medical bills, I'll ask you for it, okay? But right now, I really have to go, or I'll be late for my exam," Ethan said, knowing it was the only way she would relent. She finally nodded, and he rushed out the door. He returned home around 5:30. Diana, having been taught by her daughter-in-law, had already started the rice cooker. The vegetables were washed and chopped, and Ethan immediately tied on an apron and started cooking. After dinner, Diana insisted on taking the food to the hospital herself. She had learned to ride a bicycle from a neighbor in the village, and now the skill came in handy. Ethan, after a long, hot day, took a refreshing shower. Afterward, he and Iris sat on the sofa, enjoying a rare, quiet moment together. "Iris, I talked to your dad. The surgery and hospital stay will be around 3,000 yuan, he told her honestly. 3,000 isn't too much, Iris said, pulling out a small notebook. With our savings, the money you and Kyle made, and your salary this month, we have a little over 13,000 yuan. We have that much. Ethan was stunned. Yes, we had some saved, you brought some back from Dongguan, and I saved most of your salary. The rest is from the business. She wouldn't have believed it herself if she hadn't kept a careful record. Does that include Kyle's 3,000 yuan salary? Ethan asked, remembering he needed to pay his partner. Yes, I almost forgot, she said, slapping her forehead. So that leaves us with about 10,000. That's more than enough? Ethan said, making a mental note to give Kyle his money that night. Yes, we should pay for the surgery. Your parents have worked hard their whole lives. They shouldn't have to feel guilty about your brother anymore, Iris said. Honey, you're the best, Ethan said, pulling her into his arms, his voice thick with love and gratitude. He thanked whatever higher power had given him this second chance, a chance to truly appreciate the wonderful woman he had married. Feeling the dampness on his back, Iris gently pushed Ethan away. She saw that his eyes were red, clear signs that he had just been crying. Ethan, what's wrong? Are you worried you didn't do well on your exam? She asked, concerned. Iris, it's not the exam. I was just so happy, he said, unaware that tears had been streaming down his face. He was actually quite confident about the test. So happy. Because of my brother? It was true that his brother's leg being curable was a joyous occasion for the whole family. It's not just that. It's because I have you, Ethan said, his deep eyes filled with a profound affection. 3,000 yuan was no small sum for a family like theirs in this era. For his wife to bring it up so readily, to be so wholeheartedly devoted to his family, it was a rare and precious thing. He thought of how she used to live on simple vegetables, saving every penny to send back home, and the guilt hit him with renewed force. She could have married a wealthy man and lived like a princess. But that didn't matter anymore. From now on, he would be the one to treat her like a princess. Hearing his sentimental words, Iris's face instantly flushed, and she lowered her head. Wife, are you shy? He teased. She was still so easily flustered, blushing at a few sweet words and unable to meet his gaze. Of course not, she said, defiantly lifting her head. Seeing the mischievous glint in his eyes, she knew she'd been tricked. Ethan, you're terrible. She turned her back to him. Wife, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have teased you, he said, seeing she was genuinely a little upset. Then say you're sorry, she said, turning back around. Her beautiful, fox-like eyes narrowed at him. All right, my dear wife. I'm sorry, Ethan said with a low chuckle. With a swift movement, he pulled her into his arms. Before Iris could react, his lips were on hers. It was a kiss that felt like an overwhelming tide, as if he wanted to absorb her completely into himself, to ensure she could never leave him again. From her initial shyness, Iris slowly began to respond to his fiery passion, feeling his deep longing and possessiveness. After a long moment, he reluctantly pulled away from her slightly swollen lips. Wife, I love you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It was the first time he had ever said those 3 words to her. Iris smiled shyly and curled up in his arms like a contented kitten. The feeling was solid, secure, and deeply satisfying. Ethan felt a small pang of disappointment that she didn't say it back, but he wasn't worried. He was willing to wait. He had a lifetime to wait. Iris, you should get some sleep. I'm going to take the money over to Kyle, he said, planning to also tell him about restarting the stall in 2 days. When he received no reply, he looked down and saw that she had already fallen asleep. He tightened his embrace, carefully lifted her, and carried her to the bedroom. He gently placed her on the far side of the bed, worried she might roll off, then covered her with a thin blanket. He watched her long, dark eyelashes for a moment, then leaned in to kiss her forehead. He returned to the living room, counted out 3,000 yuan, and set aside another 100 for supplies. He put the rest of the money in the small lockbox that Iris kept under the bed. It was only 7 o'clock, too early for Kyle to be asleep. He put his shoes on and hurried downstairs. A few minutes later, he was at the factory dormitory. Kyle was indeed there, bored out of his mind. Kyle, Ethan called. Ethan bro, what are you doing here? Kyle's face lit up. I was worried you'd run out of money and starve to death. Then the chairman would have my head, Ethan joked. Here, this is your salary. 3,000. Count it. He handed the stack of bills to Kyle. Although they had only run the stall for about 20 days, Kyle had worked hard during the harvest, so Ethan counted that as part of his wages. Ethan bro, it hasn't even been a month. This is too much, Kyle protested, trying to hand 500 back. Take it. Do you want to keep working with me or not? Ethan said, his expression serious. Kyle quickly pocketed the money. All right, I'm taking it. I'll go notify Uncle Fu and the others tomorrow morning to start delivering the day after. Good. I'm heading back now. You get some sleep. Ethan bro, how's your brother's leg? Is it treatable? He's been admitted to the second hospital. My father-in-law is his doctor. Turns out it wasn't polio. He just needs a small surgery, but he'll have to recover for a month. Don't worry about it. It's not polio. That's great. Ethan bro, The surgery must cost a lot, right? Why don't you take this money first? Thank you, Kyle, but we have enough. You save your money for getting married, Ethan said, his voice sincere. I appreciate the thought. Now, I really have to go. I need to rest up for my exam tomorrow. When Ethan opened the door to the apartment, Diana was already back from the hospital. Ethan, where have you been? She asked. I just went to see Kyle for a bit, Mom, he said as he changed his shoes. Oh, Kyle's place. When you have a moment, you should invite that boy over for dinner. Actually, Mom, for a while, Kyle will be coming here for dinner every night. So when you cook, remember to add a little extra rice. He's a growing boy, he eats a lot. Why is he only coming for dinner? Where will he eat breakfast and lunch? She asked, concerned. He lives in the factory dorm, Mom. He handles his own breakfast and eats lunch in the cafeteria. He's coming here in the afternoon to help with the night stall, so he'll eat dinner with us. Oh, I see. So you're still going to run the stall at night? She asked. Won't that be too tiring? Mom, besides my job, I have to run the stall at night to make money. I told my brother about it. That's why he agreed to come to the city for the treatment. But won't that be too exhausting? Diana asked, her heart aching for him. It's not so bad, Mom. I'm still young. This is the time to work hard and earn money, he said, trying to sound cheerful. But Diana trailed off. It was strange. Before, she had been angry that he was irresponsible. Now that he was taking on so much, she just felt a deep sense of worry. Mom, my brother needs surgery, and Iris is pregnant. If I don't earn more money, what are we going to do? Besides, Kyle helps me. It's not so bad with two people. Diana sighed. It was true that the family needed the money. Well, if Kyle is helping you, you must make sure to pay him his share. Don't let him work for free, she reminded him. Ethan had to smile. Don't worry, Mom. I just went over there to give him his salary. Good, that's good. We can't take advantage of the boy. All right, I'm tired. I'm going to bed. The next morning, when Ethan woke up, he heard sounds from the kitchen. It was his mother, already busy. Mom, you're up so early, he said, glancing at the clock. It was only 6. He had planned to get up early, make breakfast, and take it to the hospital before his exam. Ethan, go wash up. I've made pork congee and boiled some eggs. You eat, and then I'll take some to your father and brother. You eat first, Mom. I'll take the food to them on my way to my exam, he said, heading to the bathroom. The hospital was a 10-minute bike ride, but a half-hour walk for his mother. When he came out, he saw 2 enamel lunch pails packed in net bags on the table, each with a boiled egg. A bowl of congee and another egg were set out for him. Hurry and eat, Ethan. Then you can take this to your father and brother. Mom, keep an eye on Iris. Let her sleep in this morning. Don't you worry. She's carrying my grandchild. Of course I'll take good care of her. You'd think I'd neglect your wife? She teased. Of course not, Mom. I was just saying, he said with a grin, and began to eat. After breakfast, he rode his bike to the second hospital. When he arrived at the room, his father and brother were just getting up. Dad, breakfast, Ethan said, setting the food down. You're here so early, son. Why did you come instead of your mother? David asked as he started peeling an egg. Mom's at home. I have an exam today, so I brought it on my way. Dad, Ethan, I don't need surgery right away. I can go home to eat, Julian said, feeling like a burden. Brother, you can't just leave. The hospital might need to run tests at any time, Ethan quickly told him. That's right, Julian. You stay put. I'm here with you, David said seriously. All right, brother, just listen to the doctors and cooperate. Don't be impatient. Healing takes time, Ethan advised. Your brother's right about that, Julian. We have to listen to the doctors, David added, impressed by how sensible his younger son had become. Dad, brother, you two eat. I have to go, Ethan said. His father-in-law wasn't at work yet. He would ask about the surgery schedule later. Go on, son. Take care of your business. We'll be fine here, David said with a wave of his hand. At noon, Iris helped her mother-in-law prepare lunch. When Ethan walked in, carrying 2 empty enamel bowls, he was greeted by the fragrant aroma of chicken soup. The table was already set with tomato and egg stir-fry, pan-fried green peppers, and eggplant with minced pork, alongside a large basin of chicken soup with tea tree mushrooms. Ethan, you're back? Go wash your hands and eat, Diana called from the kitchen. Did you slaughter one of the chickens, Mom? He asked. Yes. I killed one to make a nourishing soup for your wife. The words filled Ethan with a quiet happiness. Mom, Ethan, you two eat first. I'll get a plate and set aside some food for Dad and my brother, Iris said. She felt it was wrong to send them leftovers. It's fine, Iris. We won't be able to finish all this anyway, Diana said. It's better to set it aside first, Mom, Iris insisted. You eat first, Iris. I'll dish it out, Ethan said, getting 2 clean enamel bowls. He'd gone back to the hospital to retrieve the containers and had asked about the surgery schedule. Iris, hurry and drink this chicken soup, Diana said, ladling a large bowl for her daughter-in-law, making sure to include a large drumstick and several pieces of meat. Thank you, Mom, Iris said, looking at the huge drumstick. She wondered if she'd have any room for rice after eating it. Seeing the other drumstick still in the pot, she placed it in her mother-in-law's bowl. You have one too, Mom. Diana started to move it back, then thought better of it. The 2 drumsticks had been for her daughter-in-law, but the girl's thoughtfulness warmed her heart. She smiled and instead placed the drumstick in Ethan's bowl. My teeth aren't what they used to be. You eat it for me. Her son was working so hard. He needed the nourishment too. Ethan looked at the drumstick in his bowl and shook his head. Mom, Iris gave it to you. You should eat it. It's from her heart. He placed the drumstick back in his mother's bowl. He remembered how, when he was a child, the 2 drumsticks from the New Year's chicken were always for him and his brother. His parents never touched them. He hadn't understood then, but now he knew. Parents always gave the best to their children. His mother, seeing his insistence, left the drumstick in her bowl but didn't eat it. Later, Ethan saw that she had quietly placed it in the enamel bowl meant for his brother. He sighed and let it be. The afternoon sun was scorching, so Ethan decided he would be the one to take the lunch to the hospital. Mom, you and Iris should rest at home this afternoon. Take a nap. You're the one who should be resting, Ethan. You have an exam this afternoon. I'll take the food, Diana insisted. Mom, the sun is too strong now. How about this? You can go around 5 o'clock and bring the empty bowls back then. But you won't get any rest, she said, seeing how dark and thin her son had become. I have an exam at 1:30. I'll take the food, talk to Dad about the surgery, and if there's time, I can catch a quick nap at the hospital. Hearing that, Diana relented. All right then, you go. Wear a straw hat. Ethan arrived at the hospital when it was quiet, during the midday break. Dad, brother, time for lunch, he announced, handing them the containers. You shouldn't have let your mother come out in this heat, David said. Julian opened his container and saw the large drumstick. Ethan, why is there a drumstick in here? Eat it. Mom saved it for you. Dad, you eat it. I've been eating too much meat lately. My stomach feels a bit off, Julian said, moving the drumstick to his father's bowl. Nonsense. I don't eat that stuff. It gets stuck in my teeth, David said, promptly returning it. A single drumstick passed from one person to the next. Brother, just eat it. Otherwise, Dad won't be able to eat his lunch in peace, Ethan finally said. By the way, Dad, the surgery is scheduled for the day after tomorrow. It's supposed to rain, and the temperature will drop. My father-in-law said that's better for the surgery and recovery. Good. It's good that it's been scheduled, David said, relieved. Ethan checked the time. It was 12:30. He had half an hour to rest. Dad, brother, you two eat. I'm going to rest for a bit, he said, lying down on the spare bed and closing his eyes. David and Julian exchanged a look, then quietly left the room, closing the door behind them. After his exam, Ethan went straight to the hospital. When he entered the room, he was surprised to find not only his mother and wife, but his father-in-law as well. Dad, you're not off work yet, he asked. It was nearly 5:30. Almost. I came by to talk to your father about the surgery schedule and some of the details to be aware of, Harrison said, writing in a patient file. Dad, thank you for taking such good care of my brother's case, Ethan said sincerely. No need to be polite, son. We're all family. So the exam is over. Yes, it's over. Did it go well? I think so. The question seemed easier than I expected. Well, you look pretty confident. That's good to hear, Harrison said, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. All right, I'm heading home now. You all can chat. As Ethan and Iris were walking their father to the hospital entrance, they heard a familiar voice. Ethan, bro. Sister-in-law. They turned to see Kyle, his hands full. In his left hand was a bag of fruit. In his right, a bag of canned goods. Kyle, what are you doing here? You shouldn't have spent your money, Ethan said, knowing he had come to visit his brother. I just came to see my brother. It's just a few things. It wasn't much, Kyle said with a grin. Kyle, you should come home with us for dinner tonight, Iris offered. Okay, sister-in-law. I won't be polite then, he said happily. Back in the hospital room, Kyle greeted everyone warmly. You've come all this way, and you brought gifts too, Diana said, her heart warmed by the gesture. From now on, you come to our place for dinner. Don't be a stranger. And save your money for finding a wife, she said, growing more fond of the boy by the minute. Thank you, Kyle, the usually quiet Julian said with a smile. Don't mention it, brother. We're all family, Kyle replied. Just then, a young nurse came in carrying 2 lunch boxes. Is this Yujo's room? She asked with a bright smile, knowing they were the deputy director's relatives. Yes, it is. Can I help you? Ethan asked. Don't worry, it's nothing serious. The director asked me to bring this dinner over for you. It's already been heated up. And there's fruit, too. Ethan knew it must have been his mother-in-law's doing. He thanked the nurse and took the food. Your in-laws are so thoughtful, son. You're a very lucky man, Diana said, her eyes getting misty again. The boy must have had some divine luck to marry Iris, David added. Ethan just grinned at his blushing wife. You're right, Mom and Dad. I must have been blessed by the gods to have married such a wonderful wife. A little while later, the group left the hospital. Kyle, did you ride your bike? Ethan asked. Yes, I did, Ethan bro. Then you can give my mom a ride, and I'll take Iris. It was an arrangement that suited everyone. A short ride later, they were all back home. Excuse me, nurse. Could you tell me where Director Zhang's office is? The person asking was none other than Kyle. Are you looking for Deputy Director Harrison Zhang in orthopedics? The young nurse asked kindly. Yes, that's him. It's the second room on the left, down that hall, she said, pointing. Kyle thanked her and hurried off. He had wanted to find the deputy director yesterday, but had run out of time. He soon found the office and knocked. Come in, a strong voice called from inside. Kyle entered and saw two men in white coats studying an x-ray. Harrison, we'll talk more later. I'm heading back to my office, one of them said. It was Director Franklin Fu, one of the lead surgeons for the operation. Hello, you must be Director Jiang? Kyle asked politely. I am. And who might you be? Harrison asked, not recognizing the young man. I'm a friend of Ethan Bros. I know the surgery for brother Julian must be expensive, and I want to help his parents. Young man, if you want to help them, you can go directly to their room, Harrison said, confused as to why he had come to him. If I give it to them directly, they won't accept it. That's why I'm asking for your help. I know you're Ethan Bros' father-in-law, so you understand their situation. Harrison nodded. It was true. The Yu family was too proud to accept a direct handout. So how do you want to help? And what can I do for you? Harrison decided he would assist the kind-hearted young man. I have 500 yuan here. When brother Julian is discharged, could you just reduce their bill by 500? Do you think that would work? Kyle asked, placing the money on the desk. All right, I'll do my best, Harrison agreed. What's your name, son? I'm Kyle Chien. You can just call me Kyle. All right, Kyle. Since you're Ethan's friend, you should come over to the house with him sometime. I will, Director Jiang. Thank you. I won't take up any more of your time. Please remember to keep this a secret. With his mission accomplished, Kyle left the hospital, his heart feeling light. He arrived at the New Peace apartment complex around 11. Kyle, you're late today, Ethan commented. Not late at all. The rice just started cooking. Diana chided her son. Something came up, Ethan bro, Kyle said, pouring himself a glass of water. You didn't just wake up, did you? Were you up late last night? Ethan teased. Of course not. I'm not a pig, you know, Kyle retorted, then worried that Ethan might have somehow found out about his trip to the hospital. But that was impossible. Ha! Ethan, Diana, and Iris all burst out laughing. What's so funny, Ethan bro? It's true. The latest I ever sleep is 10 o'clock, Kyle said defensively. As long as his secret was safe, he didn't mind being laughed at. Kyle, you're not skipping breakfast, are you? That's a bad habit. Even if you sleep in, you should eat something first, Ethan said, his tone turning serious. I know, Ethan bro. I'll eat breakfast next time, Kyle promised. All right, Kyle, I'm going to cook now. You just sit tight and wait for lunch, Ethan said, clapping him on the shoulder before disappearing into the kitchen. Okay, I'll be waiting, Kyle called back, and the sound of laughter filled the room once more. That afternoon, Uncle Fu delivered the crayfish, and Ethan and Kyle got straight to work. Ethan lit the stove and rewashed all the pots and pans. They hadn't been used in over 10 days and had gathered a layer of dust. Diana came down to help, chopping garlic, peppers, and ginger. She'd wanted to help with the crayfish, but their waving claws made her hesitate. Kyle, now an expert at scrubbing the crustaceans, handled them with ease, never getting pinched. Even Iris came down to help peel garlic. With so many hands, the prep work was finished quickly. Diana and Iris went upstairs to cook dinner, while Ethan started on the first batch of crayfish. Today's menu wouldn't include the river snails. They needed a few days in a basin of clean water, with a couple of drops of oil to speed up the process of expelling sand. After a quick dinner, Ethan and Kyle pedaled their tricycle cart to Tali University, arriving half an hour earlier than usual. They swept their usual spot and set up the tables and stools. They had also stocked up on beer, bottled water, and sodas, knowing college students often had some spending money. The old gatekeeper, Mr. Lee, saw them setting up and called out, asking where they'd been. Ethan shouted back that he'd gone home for the rice harvest. The old man nodded, relieved. The students had been asking after him. Once everything was ready, Ethan brought a bowl of crayfish over to the gatekeeper's booth, a gift for good luck on their first night back. Mr. Lee tried to pay, but Ethan refused, insisting it was a gift. Suddenly, Ethan slapped his thigh, a look of panic on his face. He'd completely forgotten. The students were on summer vacation. The gatekeeper chuckled, reassuring him that plenty of students stayed on campus over the break. And just as he said it, a group of 4 or 5 female students walked over, one of them cheering that the crayfish prince was back. They ordered 5 portions and 5 bottles of water. As they were the first customers of the night, Ethan gave them the water for free. They were followed by a group of male students, who ordered beer with their crayfish. Business was unexpectedly brisk. By the time they sold out, customers were already asking him to make more for the next day. It was a grand reopening. As they were packing up around 9, Ethan noticed a shop for sale just outside the university's main gate. It was too late to investigate now, but an idea began to form in his mind. He knew that in the year 2000, this whole area was slated for redevelopment. The university was going to build all new academic buildings. This was an opportunity. On the ride back, Kyle couldn't get over how good business had been, even with the students on vacation. Ethan pedaled hard, agreeing that it was a pleasant surprise. Kyle asked if they would continue setting up the stall. and Ethan laughed, asking if he was silly enough to turn down good money. The conversation then shifted. Ethan wondered aloud if a talented university student like Kyle felt that running a street stall was a waste of his potential. But Kyle was adamant. He found this work fulfilling and had no interest in a restrictive office job. This was exactly what he wanted: freedom and a chance to build something of his own. Ethan, hearing the conviction in his voice, dropped the subject and floated a new idea. What if they had a proper storefront? A place where they could sell crayfish, river snails, and other things, sheltered from the elements. Kyle loved the idea. They arrived back at the complex and pushed the cart into the storage unit. Ethan told Kyle to head home, saying he would clean everything himself. But Kyle insisted on helping. With both of them working, they finished in 15 minutes what usually took Ethan half an hour alone. After Kyle left, Ethan locked up and went upstairs. His mother, Diana, was still awake, waiting for him. Iris was on the sofa with her. He was safe, Diana said. He didn't need to wait up for him. He tossed the money bag to Iris, asking her to count the evening's earnings while he took a much-needed shower. He emerged 20 minutes later, feeling refreshed. Iris had finished counting, her eyes sparkling. The total came to 763 yuan. Diana gasped. She couldn't believe it. After accounting for costs, Ethan estimated their profit was over 500 yuan. He saw the disbelief on his mother's face and confirmed it with a smile. She was astounded that they could earn in a single evening what took her and his father years to save. Ethan cautioned her to keep the amount to themselves. It was better if not everyone knew how well they were doing. She nodded in understanding. Only then, with the money counted and the day's work done, did the three of them finally go to bed. The next morning, Ethan woke early and went to the market. He bought a large grass carp and was halfway through making fish congee when his mother came into the kitchen. She chided him for not sleeping in, but he explained that he'd woken up early and decided to make breakfast. He had already boiled eggs for everyone. His mother, he knew, rarely ate them at home, preferring to save them to sell for money. When Diana was ready, Ethan served her a bowl of the boneless fish congee along with a side of her homemade pickled cucumbers. He was worried she might not be used to such a dish, but she found it surprisingly delicious and fresh. He urged her to eat more, handing her a peeled egg, which she accepted gratefully. It was another small sign of how much her son had changed. He was truly a different man now, thoughtful and caring. Ethan told her he would take breakfast to his father and brother at the hospital, as Julian's surgery was scheduled for 10:30 that morning. He figured it would give him enough time to swing by the university and check on that shop. At the hospital, he dropped off the food, chatted for a bit, then headed to Tali University. The shop was closed with a roll-down metal gate, but a notice was posted on it. It was for sale, approximately 50 square meters for 50,000 yuan, 1,000 yuan per square meter. The price was mid-range for a small city like this, but the location was prime. For Ethan, 50,000 was an astronomical sum. He had a little over 10,000 in savings, but a good portion of that was needed for his brother's medical bills. Getting a bank loan in this era wasn't easy, especially without a formal job or collateral. As he paced in front of the shop, wrestling with the impossible problem, the old gatekeeper, Mr. Lee, called out to him, asking what he was doing there so early in the day. Mr. Lee, the gatekeeper, sensed Ethan's troubled mind and offered him a bottle of water. Ethan thanked him and explained that he'd seen the for sale sign the night before and had come for a closer look. He admitted that while he was interested, the 50,000 yuan price tag was far too high for him. Mr. Lee's eyes lit up. He told Ethan that if he was serious about it, the price could be negotiable. Ethan pieced it together instantly. The shop must belong to Mr. Lee. The old man nodded. He had been renting it out, but the last lease had expired. Now, his son, who worked in Guangzhou, needed money for a down payment on a house. That's why he was in a hurry to sell. Ethan felt a flicker of hope. He asked when his son needed the money, and Mr. Lee replied that the deadline was September 18th. That gave Ethan about a month and a half. He did a quick mental calculation. If he earned an average of 500 yuan a day, that was 15,000 a month. After paying Kyle's salary, he could clear over 10,000. In a month and a half, he could maybe scrape together another 15,000. Added to what he already had, that would be around 25,000. It was still a huge shortfall, but it was a start. He asked Mr. Lee how much of a discount he was willing to offer. The old man, saying he liked Ethan and found him to be an honest young man, offered to knock 5,000 off the price, bringing it down to 45,000. Ethan was touched by the generous offer. He explained that he couldn't make a decision right then. His brother's surgery was that morning, and he needed to be at the hospital. He also needed to discuss such a large purchase with his wife. Mr. Lee was completely understanding, telling him to go to the hospital and that the shop could wait another day. Ethan promised to give him an answer the next day. As he rode his bicycle towards the hospital, he was filled with gratitude for the old man's kindness and decency. Ethan rushed to the hospital and paid the surgery fee first. It was 1,450 yuan. He didn't know that his father-in-law had already arranged for a 500 yuan discount. When he got to the room, his mother, Iris, and even Kyle were already there. His brother, Julian, was dressed in a surgical gown, looking understandably nervous. Ethan went to the bedside to offer some encouragement, assuring him it was a minor operation and that they would all be waiting for him. Julian, grateful for his brother's support, managed a brave face. His father told him to be strong, while his mother fought back tears, telling him not to worry. Iris chimed in, reminding him that his 2 future nephews would be waiting for their uncle to give them piggyback rides. The light-hearted banter eased some of the tension in the room. A few minutes later, 2 orderlies arrived with a gurney. The family watched as Julian was wheeled into the operating room. Ethan glanced at his watch, 10:29 a.m. Just then, his mother-in-law, Elaine, arrived, having rushed over after her morning classes. She sat with Diana, offering quiet comfort and reassurance. David squatted nearby, his hand twitching for a cigarette he couldn't smoke. Ethan, noticing his father's anxiety, pointed him toward the designated smoking area. But David shook his head, refusing to leave his post outside the operating room door. The wait was agonizing. Ethan bought everyone bottled water as they stared at the red light above the door that read "Surgery in Progress." Just before 11:20, the light went off and the doors opened. Julian was wheeled out, unconscious from the anesthesia. Harrison Jiang, his mask removed, followed behind, a broad smile on his face. He announced to the anxious family that the surgery had been a complete success. A wave of relief washed over them. The hospital director, Franklin Fu, who had assisted in the surgery, congratulated them before taking his leave. Harrison explained that after Julian recovered, he would be able to walk just like a normal person. The news brought tears of joy to everyone's eyes. With the surgery over and Julian resting, Ethan suggested that he, Iris, Kyle, and his mother-in-law go back to his apartment to prepare lunch for everyone. As Ethan was preparing to take lunch to the hospital, he turned to his mother-in-law. "Mom, do you have classes this afternoon?" "No, I'm free this afternoon." "Then you and Iris should take a nap here at home. The sun is scorching outside. Now that my brother is okay, I can take the food over by myself." With the surgery a success, there was no need for so many people to crowd the hospital room. Elaine thought for a moment and agreed. She could visit tomorrow. Besides, her bicycle had gotten a flat tire on the way to the hospital that morning, and she needed to pick it up from the repair shop. "All right, Ethan, you go on ahead," she said. "Mom, maybe you could just call me Ethan," he suggested, feeling that the full name was a bit too formal. Elaine smiled and nodded. "All right, from now on, you're Ethan." Ethan then turned to Kyle. "Kyle, you should go back to the factory and get some rest. You can come back this afternoon." "You don't need me to come to the hospital with you, Ethan bro." "No, my brother's fine. You get some rest. We have to work tonight, remember?" Iris spoke up. "Ethan, I'll go with you." "Iris, you should stay here and rest with your mom. She's had a long morning, with teaching and then rushing over to the hospital." Iris looked at her mother and finally nodded. Ethan glanced at his wife, thinking about the shop, but now wasn't the right time. He would tell her tonight after they closed the stall. After making sure everyone was settled, Ethan left with Kyle. At the complex gate, they went their separate ways. Ethan went to the hospital, heading first to his father-in-law's office. "Ethan, bringing me lunch?" Harrison asked, seeing him at the open door. "Yes, Dad. I hope you like it." "Of course I'll like it. I haven't forgotten the delicious dishes you made at my house," Harrison said, opening the container and starting to eat immediately. Not bad, son. Very tasty." "Dad, you can just call me Ethan, too," he reminded him. All right. From now on, you're Ethan," Harrison said, agreeing that it felt less distant. "Dad, thank you so much for what you did for my brother," Ethan said, giving a deep, sincere bow. "Hey, what are you doing? We're family. Now, go on and check on your brother. And remember, no spicy or sour foods, and no smoking until the incision heals." Ethan grinned. "Got it, Dad. I'm going." He hurried off to the ward. "Dad, Mom, time to eat," he called as he entered. He was surprised to see his brother already awake and propped up against a pillow. "Brother, you're awake?" "He woke up about half an hour after you left," David said, beaming. This was a day he had only dreamed of. "Brother, does the incision hurt?" Ethan asked. "The anesthesia must have worn off." "A little, but it's okay," Julian said with a smile. "The nurse brought some painkillers, son." He took one, "so it should feel better soon," Diana added. This was the happiest she'd been in years. "Ethan, brother, thank you. Without you, I wouldn't be here today," Julian said, his eyes welling up. "Brother, I don't want to hear that. We're family. We're brothers. You don't say thank you for things like this," Ethan said, his tone firm. "That's right," David chimed in. "No need for thanks between brothers." Ethan handed Julian his lunch, which he had prepared separately, tomato and egg stir-fry and plain sautéed water spinach. "Remember, brother, no spicy or sour foods for a while, and keep the wound dry." Ethan looked at his family, chatting and laughing as they ate, and a warmth spread through his chest. Fortunately, everything was still in time. When Ethan got home from the stall that night, his mother was already asleep. His wife, however, was still awake, reading a book by the light of the bedside lamp. "Iris, still up?" he asked, checking his watch. It was 9:30. "You're back?" You must be tired. Husband, Iris said softly, a little shyly. The word sent a jolt of happiness through Ethan. She had finally called him that, and it felt like it came from the heart. Wife, I didn't quite hear that. Could you say it again? He teased, leaning in close. You're all sweaty. Go take a shower. I've already put your clean clothes in the bathroom, she said, gently pushing him away. Ethan chuckled and placed the money bag on the bed. All right, I'll stop teasing. I'm going to take a shower. You can count the money. He knew how much she enjoyed that task. Iris set her book aside. It was Jane Eyre, a novel about a young woman's struggle to forge her own path in life. She found it deeply inspiring. As Ethan showered, he tried to figure out how to bring up the topic of the shop. After paying the surgery fee, he knew they had over 10,000 left, but he wasn't sure of the exact amount. 20 minutes later, feeling clean and refreshed, he climbed into bed and wrapped his arms around his wife. So, did you finish counting? How much did we make tonight? After costs, we made 652 yuan, she said, her eyes crinkling with a smile. She had started keeping a small ledger, which made tallying the day's earnings much quicker. Not bad, Ethan said. They hadn't sold any river snails tonight, but they would be ready tomorrow, which would boost their income. Not bad at all, she agreed. A little while ago, they wouldn't have even been able to afford his brother's surgery. Iris, there's something I want to discuss with you, Ethan began, deciding to just come out with it. What is it? Tell me. Iris, after paying for my brother's surgery, how much money do we have left? After the fee, we have about 11,500. Plus the earnings from the last 2 nights, it's around 12,600, she calculated. 12,000. It wasn't nearly enough. He took a deep breath. Iris, what happened was, I saw a shop for sale, and it cost 45,000 yuan. He told her everything. The location near the university, the conversation with Mr. Lee, and the potential it held. Iris listened quietly. 45,000 was an enormous sum, but she also thought about Ethan working the stall every night, exposed to the wind and rain. A shop next to the university was a good long-term investment. Seeing her silence, Ethan thought she was against the idea. Iris, I know it's a lot of money. If you don't agree, we can just forget about it. He couldn't tell her his real reason for wanting it, the future redevelopment plan, without sounding crazy. Ethan, I'm not disagreeing, she finally said. I'm just thinking about the money. We're quite a bit short. Hearing that she wasn't opposed was all the encouragement Ethan needed. The money was a problem they could solve. Iris, tomorrow I'll go talk to Mr. Lee. Maybe we can pay a deposit first and pay the rest later. That might work. When are you planning to go see him? Iris asked, a plan already forming in her own mind. Maybe after lunch tomorrow? Okay, she said. That sounds good. It's getting late, Ethan. Let's go to sleep. Ethan nodded and closed his eyes, falling asleep almost instantly. Iris watched him, his face peaceful in the soft light. He was working so hard for them. It was time for her to help. The next morning, after Ethan and his mother had left for the hospital, Iris went to her parents' apartment. She knew her mother, Elaine, didn't have classes that morning and would be home. Elaine was mopping the floor when she heard the knock. It was only 8:40. She thought perhaps her husband had forgotten something. When she opened the door and saw her daughter, she was surprised. Iris, what are you doing here? Have you had breakfast? She asked, a flicker of worry crossing her mind. Had they argued? I've eaten, Mom, Iris said, closing the door behind her. Are you cleaning? Just mopping the floors. I haven't had a chance the last couple of days, Elaine said, resuming her work. Let me help you, Mom. You go rest on the sofa. You'll do no such thing. Go sit down. There's fruit on the coffee table. I'll be done in a minute. Iris had no choice but to wait on the sofa. You came at a good time. I'm going to make some bone broth to take to the hospital for Julian. You can have some too. Okay, Mom, Iris said distractedly. She was trying to figure out how to ask her mother for the loan. She had always been too stubborn to ask her parents for help, especially back when Ethan was aimless and irresponsible. But things were different now. Ethan was working tirelessly. His job, the stall, his studies. Buying the shop was a smart business move, a solid asset for their future. If she didn't support him now, when would she? After finishing her cleaning, Elaine sat down next to her daughter. All right, what's wrong? Is it about Julian's medical bills? She knew her daughter wouldn't show up this early, alone, unless something was wrong. It's not about my brother's medical bills, Mom. We have enough for that. We want to buy a shop near Tali University, but we don't have enough money. Iris explained the situation in detail. Iris, over 40,000 yuan is no small amount. Where would you get that kind of money? We only have a little over 10,000 right now. Ethan's idea is to pay a portion first and the rest later. I see, Elaine said, considering. Well, I don't have much, but I can lend you 10,000 to help you out. The family had about 20,000 in savings. She wasn't worried about their own expenses, as both she and her husband had steady salaries. She was holding back the other half, just in case, a safety net for her daughter should things with her son-in-law ever go wrong. Oh, Mom, thank you, Iris cried, hugging her mother tightly. She felt a pang of guilt for all the worry she had caused them over the years. But shouldn't you discuss this with Dad first? I'll tell your father tonight. He won't object. Now stop crying. You're a grown woman. Then I'll write you an IOU. Iris insisted, going to her old room to find a pen and paper. Iris, you don't need to do that. Consider it a gift from your father and me. Mom, if it's a gift, I can't take it. If it's a loan, I'll accept it, Iris said firmly. Elaine sighed and accepted the IOU. She could always add the money back in when they bought a house. After a trip to the bank, Iris hurried home with the money, hoping to get back before Ethan returned. Iris was waiting on the sofa when Ethan returned home to make lunch. Iris, have you eaten? He asked, seeing her as he walked in. Ethan, come here. I have something to tell you, she said, beckoning him over. He immediately thought something was wrong. Iris, are you not feeling well? He asked, rushing to her side. Look at you, so worried, she said with a warm smile. I'm fine. I just have something to tell you. His genuine concern filled her heart. It was true. Since she had become pregnant, Ethan had changed so much. Okay, I'm listening, he said, relieved. Here, Iris said, handing him a small pouch. What's this? He asked, taking it. It felt heavy. Open it and see, she said with a sly smile. He unzipped the pouch and saw stacks of 100 yuan bills. He estimated it was around 20,000 yuan. Iris, where did you get all this money? There's 20,000 here, Ethan. I borrowed 10,000 from my mom. I gave her an IOU. We have to pay this back. It's my parents' retirement money. Iris, you went and borrowed money from your mom? He asked, stunned. He had never even considered asking his in-laws for money. He was too ashamed, especially after having given them no dowry and not even holding a proper wedding banquet. Iris nodded. Ethan, what you're doing is important. I'm your wife. Of course I have to support you. Ethan wanted to refuse the money, but he knew she wouldn't be happy if he returned it. It was her way of contributing, of showing her faith in him and their future. All right, since you've already borrowed it, we'll use it. We'll pay your parents back as soon as we earn the money, he said, vowing to himself to pay them back with interest. Thank you, Iris, he said softly, planting a kiss on her forehead. Ethan, you and I are one. It's only right that I do this, she said. A family could only thrive when both people work together, in good times and in bad. Hearing her words, Ethan felt a sting in his nose. You're absolutely right, wife. You should watch some TV. I'll go make lunch, he said, quickly getting up and heading to the kitchen before she could see the emotion in his eyes. He had treated her so poorly in the past. He hadn't been abusive, but he had been neglectful, failing in his duties as a husband. Yet she held no resentment. His small changes had been met with her complete and total devotion. With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? After lunch, Ethan took the meal to the hospital and then returned home to get the money. Iris, let's go look at the shop together, he suggested. I'll stay here. It's too hot outside. You go. I trust you, she said with a smile. She knew he wanted her to see it for herself, but she had complete faith in his business sense. All right, I'll stay with you for a bit, then I'll go by myself. He sat with her on the sofa, and she rested her head in his lap, feeling drowsy. Iris, things have been so busy lately. When things calm down, I'll take you out somewhere nice, he said, stroking her hair. They shared a few moments of playful, romantic banter, a new and welcome dynamic in their relationship. Soon, Iris drifted off to sleep. Ethan carefully carried her to their bed, tucked her in, and then quietly left the apartment. At the university, Mr. Lee was already looking out for him. Young man, you're here. Mr. Lee, I told you I'd come today, Ethan said, parking his bike. So, what did you and your wife decide? The old man asked, eyeing the bag Ethan was carrying. We discussed it last night, and she agreed. But I can't pay the full amount right now. Would it be possible for me to give you 20,000 now, and the rest on September 10th? Mr. Lee thought for a moment. He needed the money for his son by the 18th, so the 10th would leave him plenty of time. He trusted the young man. All right, I agree. But you must have the final payment to me by September 10th. You have my word, Mr. Lee. Ethan, you always keep my promises. Good. Now let me show you the shop. If there are no problems, we can settle the rest. Mr. Lee unlocked the roll-down gate. It's still quite new inside. I had it renovated just last year, he said. Ethan stepped inside and saw that he was telling the truth. The walls were freshly painted, and the floor tiles were new. It was a good deal. The walls were freshly painted, and the floor tiles were new. Mr. Lee handed him the key to the gate and returned to his post. The shop was divided into two sections, with a small loft in the back accessible by a wooden ladder. It was spacious and clean. Ethan was very satisfied. He went back to the security booth, where Mr. Lee showed him the property's title certificate and the expired lease from the previous tenant. Everything was in order. Where Mr. Lee showed him the property's title certificate and the expired lease from the previous tenant. Ethan paid the deposit, and Mr. Lee wrote out a receipt. They both signed it and pressed their thumbprints in red ink. The transfer of the title would happen after the final payment was made. For now, the shop was as good as his. The keys were already in his hand. After finishing his business, Ethan returned home. It was 3:30, about the time he needed to start prepping. He had to get an early start today because he was adding river snails to the menu. Preparing them involved clipping the tail end of each shell with a pair of pliers, a tedious but necessary task. Uncle Fu and his crew delivered the crayfish and snails, and Ethan paid them. He figured his wife was still napping, so he didn't go upstairs. Instead, he sat on a small plastic stool outside the storage unit and began the rhythmic work of clipping the snails. Kyle arrived on his bike, surprised to see Ethan already at work. "Ethan bro, why are you here so early today?" "You forgot, I'm still on leave from the factory," Ethan said with a smile, tossing a clipped snail into a bucket of clean water. Kyle went into the storage unit and started washing the crayfish. As they worked, Ethan decided to tell him about the shop. "Kyle, I bought a shop next to the university. I was thinking that working a stall out in the open isn't a long-term solution." "A shop next to the university? That's a prime location," Kyle said, knowing enough about business to recognize a good spot. "That's what I thought too. The location is what sold me," Ethan said, his hands moving quickly. "How much did it cost?" Kyle asked, almost getting pinched by a crayfish in his surprise. "The asking price was $50,000, but since I know the owner, I got it for $45,000. That's a huge amount. For Kyle's family it was nothing, but for Ethan, it was a fortune. "Yeah, I only had a little over 10,000. Your sister-in-law borrowed 10,000 for me, so we made a 20,000 yuan down payment. The rest is due later." He briefly explained that the owner was Mr. Lee, the gatekeeper. "So you have to come up with 25,000 in a little over a month." Kyle calculated. The stall could definitely earn over 10,000 in that time. If his brother was short by a few thousand, he would figure out a way to help. "That's the plan," Ethan confirmed. "Ethan bro, I think you made the right call. I support you." Just then, Diana returned from the hospital. It was around 5 o'clock. Seeing her son working, she came over. After greeting Kyle, she asked, "How can your father manage at the hospital all by himself?" "It's fine, Mom. My brother is doing much better, and the nurses are there to help. Besides, your father is more than enough company." Diana had come back to make dinner, wanting to help ease her son's burden. She started chopping dried chilies and garlic, then went upstairs to cook. Inside the apartment, she found Iris already washing vegetables. She had woken up from her nap, and, seeing Ethan wasn't back, figured he was busy downstairs and decided to start dinner. "Let me do that," Diana insisted, gently shooing her daughter-in-law away from the sink. Iris just laughed, saying she was almost done anyway. In the end, Diana took over the cooking, while Iris finished washing the last of the cucumbers. The sound of their cheerful conversation drifted down to the storage unit, where Ethan and Kyle were working. They both smiled. This, perhaps, was the warmth of a family. A few days passed. Ethan and Iris were on their way to the hospital with dinner, chatting as they walked. As they approached the ward, they saw a young woman in a white ruffled blouse and jeans, hunched over and peeking through a crack in the door to Julian's room. "Ethan, do you know that girl?" Iris asked. He shook his head. "I don't have any female friends here." Although he'd been a bit of a rascal in the past, he had never been unfaithful. "But her back looks familiar," he added, squinting. "Well, why don't you go ask her?" Iris suggested. "Good idea. You're always the smart one," Ethan said with a grin. He walked up behind the girl. "Excuse me, who are you?" The sudden voice startled her. She turned, saw Ethan, and immediately bolted. Iris, who was standing behind him, barely caught a glimpse of her face. "Iris, that's Mayu. You hold this. I'm going after her," Ethan said, handing her the lunch containers. "Go on, hurry." Iris knew of Mayu, the village chief's daughter. She couldn't believe the girl had been brave enough to come to the city all by herself. Ethan took off at a run. He was sure she must have found out about his brother's treatment and followed them. She was a girl from their village, and no matter what happened between her and his brother, he couldn't let her wander around the city alone and unsafe. With his long legs, he caught up with her just outside the hospital entrance. "Mayu, why did you run when you saw me?" he asked, blocking her path. "Ethan bro, I was afraid you'd find me and send me away," she said timidly. "Why would we do that? Have you eaten yet?" Mayu shook her head. She'd only had a steamed bun for breakfast and was down to her last few yuan. She'd left home with only 20. He took her to a nearby noodle shop and ordered her a bowl of beef noodle soup with a fried egg. She mumbled a thank you and began to eat ravenously. "Where have you been staying these past few days?" he asked gently. "I've been sleeping on a bench in the hospital park," she admitted. She had planned to wait until Julian was a bit better and then either go home or find a job in the city. Ethan sighed. He didn't have the heart to scold her, seeing how exhausted and hungry she was. And she had done it all for his brother. "Slow down, you'll choke. I can order more if you're still hungry," he said, handing her a bottle of water. "Sorry, Ethan bro. I was just really hungry," she said, blushing. Is brother Julian's leg okay?" "My brother just had surgery. Don't worry, it was a success. He'll be able to walk normally from now on." "That's wonderful," she exclaimed, jumping to her feet. With Julian's leg fixed, maybe her mother wouldn't object to them anymore. "I'm full, Ethan bro." "All right, Come back to the hospital with me. My parents are there. Don't be afraid. We're not going to send you away. Mayu followed him back, her heart filled with relief and happiness. She had always heard her parents complain about Ethan, but he seemed like a really good person. Still, it was his brother, Julian, who held her heart.